You know, I get told sometimes that I got to stay in my lane. That's a LeVar Ball thing, right? Stay in your lane. And I've been out of my lane for a while, guys. I got to tell you, and we talked about it a little bit last night with Chris Solari, Michigan State beat writer for basketball and football. And you know, I had to get back on track. I had to talk more Michigan State. It's been too Michigan-oriented recently. We had John U. Bacon, Chris Castellani. We had Anthony Broom. It became like the Michigan hour. I was starting to think I got to take my shit off the wall and start putting a little Wolverine squirrel in the background. But we're back. We're back on track to Michigan State. And it was great last night. It's going to be great tonight. I appreciate you joining us. Look, I'm not doing some long intro. There was a great episode I did. I did this 15-minute introduction one night. I can't remember the episode, but it was brilliant. It was the most wonderful thing anyone has ever done ever on any broadcast. And I get a text message from David Klein afterwards saying, hey man, great episode, but a little advice. Cut down the intro. It's too long. So in his honor tonight, since he is joining me, I'm not going to do a long intro other than saying hello and welcome to the Spiro Avenue Show. We have David Klein and Justin Thind. Welcome back to both you guys.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Glad to be here next to the Caramel Prince of MSU football.
Is that the name? I've not heard that.
I don't know. I just, you know.
I was thinking of having those like kind of growth chart looking height chart things that they have at 7-Eleven so they can catch the perp. This is the tallest conglomeration of a Michigan State grouping other than the basketball team probably ever. I'm like the shrimp in here at 6'4", I feel like. But the height aside, these are some brilliant minds here. And this is a great time because there's a lot going on. And I think we'll start with what I would argue is probably the biggest thing going on right now with Michigan State. We are in the immediate wake of signing day. I talked about it last night with Chris Solari. I acknowledge the importance of signing day. I acknowledge the importance of recruiting generally. I'm not one of those, recruiting's overrated. Like, it's obviously critical. I'm also not obsessive about it. I like to just let guys like you handle it, Justin. Let you worry about it. And at the end, I'll come back and read the recap that you write or the recap that Chris Solari writes. So that's kind of where I'm at. So today, I'm reading the write-ups of what Michigan State did, how they fared. I haven't really gotten your take on it yet because it's behind a paywall, and I bet the farm on Alabama to beat Memphis money line the other night against Imani Bates, and I lost. So I can't afford your services. So
it's a good bet.
Good bet. Yeah. Tell my kids that. I am pulling them out of private school after that. So it was not a good bet. But Imani Bates had nothing to do with that loss, by the way. 15 minutes, he didn't do jack shit. But I digress.
If they played him 30, then it'd be a good bet.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I'm taking way too much pleasure in that not going well in Memphis, but that's a little bit of a digression. So because I haven't ponied up for your content yet, I'll get to it. And I'm already a member. I'm just fucking with you. Tell me, how did this go? I mean, because I think you're the preeminent guy right now for this stuff, which is crazy because you're like 12 years old. But looking at, the dust has settled, that tackle that was flirting with us and then ended up back in Vincent Marrow's arms, that's gone, that's done, he's there. Big picture, how did it go yesterday?
So I think it went great. And the reason that I say that is because, so if you only look at yesterday and you didn't follow recruiting a day before that, and you're just like, okay, today we have two guys, one's Armani Winfield, one's Keonta Goodwin, we didn't get either of those, it was a disaster. If you look at it that way, sure, it was underwhelming. But if you look at who signed and what they have done in the last 12 months, who they got, when they got them, because keep in mind, most of this class was put together back when they still just had a 2-5 record to look at. Most of these commits committed back in the summer. And they landed right now it's 21st. We'll see what happens here by late signing day. But Mel Tucker's landed a top 21, let's say top 25 class when it's all said and done. In his second year here, coming off a 2-5 season, not even counting who he's going to get in the portal. And he's landed more 24/7 Sports 4-stars this year than in the last 4 years combined at Michigan State. What he has done here is an indicator of future success once they put sustained winning out on the field. And I think that anyone looking at this, there's no way that you can have anything but excitement for what's to come if these 10-win seasons sort of continue.
So, grades tend to be overrated, but, I mean, give it in context.
Yes.
Which is important. An A+ doesn't mean it was as good as any class in the country.
Right.
Given the context of where he was at, is it an A, an A+, a B? Where are we at?
I would say it's an A- just because of the fact that there was an opening to make it an A and land Keonta Goodwin yesterday and today, and it didn't happen. But if let's say Keontae wasn't in the picture and expectations don't naturally get elevated throughout the course of this recruitment, and he was just never in the fold, I would have given this an A. There's no reason that coming off a 2-5 record, you should be landing the second best recruiting class in like the last 8 years of Michigan State. But Tucker did that. And yeah, like I said, they had the chess pieces on the board at the end to make this a top 15 class. It didn't happen. So at the end, there's a little anticlimactic finish, but this is a class that way exceeded expectations given where they are in the timetable of the rebuild.
The Goodwin thing, did you follow this, David? The Goodwin?
I did.
This thing had more delays.
I was in a group chat with these guys, and it was hot.
I don't know anything about this group chat. I feel very left out now. I feel like the Matt Sheehan response to it. I'm like, I don't watch that cartoon. Is it SpongeBob looking out the window all sad? Like, I feel like that guy now. But, like, I don't know. This is more your thing, man, than mine.
Yeah.
Like, that thing had more delays and stalls than the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. Like, it was just like, oh, it's going to happen. It's targeted for fall 2011, and it's like, now it's spring, and it's like, the guy pushed it back 7 times. Do you know anything of the mechanics of that? What was going on there? Why the 17 delays?
So what had happened here was his recruitment was handled by Chris Vaughn of Aspirations Gym down in Louisville. And this guy's a bit of a marketing guru, I guess. He knows what he's doing when it comes to this stuff. So first he signed Keontae Goodwin up for the Takis signing day event down at the Cowboys practice facility for the morning of signing day. They had not come to a decision at this point because the kid was genuinely torn throughout this entire process. And proof of that is the fact that he took 2 visits to Michigan State on his own dime before this official visit this past weekend. So the interest there was really genuine. They appeared at this event in Texas, completely undecided, by plan, knowing they had more time in that day to make the announcement with 24/7 and Steve Wiltfong. So they did their early morning sham. Smart move there, got some viewers out of that, built up suspense out of both fan bases throughout the day. Then, coming into their 5 o'clock announcement, which was supposed to be at 3 o'clock, they still were undecided, but now they had to announce because they didn't want to delay twice on a public announcement. But the kid was still genuinely torn. He was still talking to both coaching staffs. He was uncommitted, genuinely still didn't know what he wanted to do, but he had to commit somewhere. So committed to the school he was already committed to, reaffirmed that commitment, and then still was giving both coaches full opportunity to continue to recruit him. We kind of found out a few hours after he announced his commitment at 5 p.m., Corey Robinson, who's my colleague at 24/7 Sports, he's like, hey, he still hasn't signed, right? There's no tweet from the Kentucky account. Then we started diving into it. Then we started poking around, asking people. And yeah, Michigan State was working the phones nonstop last night. Right after Tucker left Tom Izzo's radio show where he tried his hand at the accordion, Tucker went back to Duffy Doherty. These guys were on the phone all night, all day today. Even an hour before he signed, him, Coach Cap, all these guys are working nonstop. At the end of the day, he didn't want to leave home. Nobody was forcing his hand. His trainer that was handling the recruitment, he was all in favor of Michigan State. His mom wasn't holding him back, but just the comfort level of him leaving home, that just could not be, that they could not supersede that with any other factors in this recruitment.
I don't get the Kentucky thing. Does it make sense to either of you?
He lives like 40 minutes away.
No.
And
big picture, though. I'm not talking about in this case.
I don't get it. No.
Because Vince Merrill was like the Jesus Christ recruiter.
Bulletproof.
I looked it up because I felt very petty this afternoon. And I had to say something mean to the Kentucky fans that were like stomping on our graves about this recruitment. It's like, they haven't won their conference since 1976. I was 11 years away from conception. Like, and that was shared. I don't get how Kentucky, every time I look up, maybe I'm wrong.
You don't get it?
Well, come on. Is there that much of a bag in Kentucky football? Basketball, I'm with you. Football? I don't get it. Doesn't everyone have a bag now? How is Kentucky like the 9th ranked class this year? And then next year it's the 12th. Like, it's Kentucky. They haven't done anything.
It's a combination of certain things that entice deals to get done, along with the inroads and connections and charisma that Vince Morrow has. So that's why he's a guy that schools all over the place want. Is it's not just the resources he has, but it's also who he is, how good he is at connecting with people and combining those two elements. And that's why he's one of the highest paid assistants in the SEC. That's why Kentucky has these 8-9 win seasons they shouldn't be having, because like you said, I don't get the appeal of Kentucky whatsoever. So he's a unique individual in terms of he is everything you want out of a recruiter, and he gets things done.
I don't know. If you had to put one on your payroll, equal pay, you take Vince Morrow or Odell Bretton Jr.
Oh, I take Odell. I take Odell.
I'm not trading. I mean, I'm sure Morrow's
He's out there working for free right now. So what are you saying?
What are they doing? Hire this guy. I've said it publicly. Michigan State should hire this guy. He has like 7,000 followers based on nothing other than like pimping out Michigan State. It's like it's the greatest one trick pony ever.
Chief of propaganda. He has it in the title.
Oh yeah,
he's a legend.
Yeah, he leans right into it. He's the best. But
Brett, if you need a letter of recommendation, we got you.
yeah, it's insane that he would even
Co-sign.
Need one. Yeah, I mean, it's the one criticism I'll have of Tucker is like, how's that guy not gotten a phone call yet? Like, it's, maybe he has. Maybe he's turned down 7 figures for all I know. But okay, so this, for those that don't know, I mean, we're talking about. I mean, what was he? A top 15 prospect that's offensive tackle?
He's a surefire NFL first-round draft pick unless he has injury issues. He is the closest sure thing you'll have to a franchise left tackle in college.
So this is what's kind of interesting to me. So, and we'll use this as the transition. They're going after this type of player.
Yep.
This is something we saw D'Antonio do once, and they all ended up on the docket at the 54B District Court in East Lansing. We won't go there today. That's a different story. So I was reading Colton Pouncey, who, my opinion, top 5 sports writer in the country right now. I mean, just he's fantastic.
Yes.
And I'm not that nice of a guy, Justin. I'm not like Odell who blows up all these guys. Like, if I don't like you, I'm not going to say something bad. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm reading Colton Pouncey today from The Athletic, and we pulled this quote. So, Ben, let's start there. And then I'm going to transition to the Mel Tucker quote from the same article. This is Colton Pouncey today. For anyone not used to Michigan State going after high-end talent, get used to it. Michigan State will continue to be in battles for these 5-star players, and the hope moving forward is that it will win its share. That transitions directly into the Mel Tucker quote from the same story. Ben, if we can lose the logo there. Quote, we believe the 2023 class is going to be very strong for us. We already have strong name recognition with the prospects, their families, and their coaches. We're going to be able to get in on more of the very, very top players in the country than we did before. We'll get in on the 5-star guys and stay in it. That's Mel Tucker. So, look, this is what we were told when this guy was hired, that this guy's the recruiter. I mean, he's the ultimate recruiter. He's the ultimate salesman. He's fantastic in this lane. He's saying it publicly. Colton Pouncey, the top 5 sports writer in the country, saying this is what they're going to do. We saw how close they got to a guy you're saying is a surefire, barring injury, first-round draft pick in 3 years. Do you buy that they'll get there? I believe that they're going for it. Do you think they can get there? Because in my lifetime, the Charles Rogers pop up every 5 years, 7 years, surefire top 10 guy. But that's not been Michigan State, where year after year, you have at least 1 or 2 5-star guys. God forbid more. I mean, that's what Bama does. Do you think this is actually going to manifest in result? Because close is great, but Central Michigan signed this tackle the same way Michigan State did in the last 24 hours.
If Keontae Goodwin lived 2 hours north, he'd be going to Michigan State. So that's how close Tucker was to already getting there after one good season. So I do believe, without a doubt, Michigan State will be recruiting at a level higher than they've ever recruited, and Mel Tucker will land a 5-star in the next class or 2. And once the first one comes and it becomes something that 5 stars across the nation start to see as normal, that is something that'll follow. I was talking to a 2023 defensive back earlier today, Ryan Yates, all the way down in Denton, Texas, goes to Denton Geyer. He was telling me how starstruck he was from seeing Coach Tucker on the sideline of his practice. This is a kid that never grew up rooting for Michigan State, never grew up rooting for the Georgia team that Tucker's the DC for. Simply just sees, okay, there's Mel Tucker. That guy's the one that's making $95 million. That's the guy that I see on Twitter all the time on private jets. That's a dude that has a long resume. Man, he's at my practice and he's starstruck. That's the effect he's had after one good season. And everything Tucker does is intentional. He's a branding genius. And if he can get 1 or 2 more of these seasons, there will be recruits coming to Michigan State that you've never seen come to Michigan State.
Is that the biggest thing? I don't mean to interrupt you, but just the geographic reach to be able to see, right? We were very much a Midwest regional type recruiting program, and now what we've seen is he's going into the South and being able to pull kids from there, both in the transfer portal as well as the high school kids. And I think that that's the biggest difference, where the whole nation is being recruited versus what we were before, and maybe even what we are currently still in basketball, which is for the most part a regional recruiting program.
Right. Ben, I'll give you a second because I'm going to blargety-blarg for a second. But Ben, if you have that Barry Alvarez quote from last night, that'd be a good thing to pull for this context. But look, I've been so impressed because I've said, honestly, the same thing with the basketball program for years. It's like, I love that we kill it in Indiana. Like, Gary Harris was a lot of fun pulling him in, the Midwest guys. I love that, but it does bother me that every time there's some guy from, like, California, I'm not saying there's never been an exception ever, but 99% of the time, Izzo's not even on these guys' top 5. The football program, even more so, other than Georgia, Denard, obviously, being the best one, but there were a few guys from Georgia that were fantastic. But it always bothered me that Michigan State didn't really seem that interested in, with either program, aggressively recruiting nationally. He's there now, right? I mean, that's apparent.
Yep.
And I think that's where, here's the Barry Alvarez quote. So we talked about this last night with Solari. This is one of my favorite recruiting quotes ever. Barry Alvarez, longtime coach of Wisconsin, and was also their AD. Our heart and soul will come from Wisconsin. Our hands and feet better come from somewhere else. And that's a great way to put it, because it's like, look, yeah, Wisconsin has some guys. But if you want to win Rose Bowls, like Wisconsin was wanting to do for quite some time, especially under Barry Alvarez, you better be getting guys from Georgia, Texas, California, not regularly, but you better mix them in. Tucker seems to embody that, does he not? At this point?
You know what my favorite fact about this class is? There are more guys from the state of Georgia than there are from the state of Michigan.
It's unbelievable.
You keep doing that, you're hanging Big Ten banners. You get 7-8 guys from Georgia every year, you're set. I know D'Antonio is getting lots of guys from Georgia too, but to the point where it is the highest state that you're recruiting from, that is unreal. And guys down there love Mel Tucker from a short stint as a DC at Georgia. I've been talking to assistant coaches down there, high school coaches. Those guys, Mel is the guy that they see as the prototypical kid they want to send their players to, specifically defensive players. And Georgia is going to be hit hard. Louisiana is going to be hit hard. They're looking to most likely have a South Florida influence for the 10th coaching vacancy, if possible. They don't want to force it, but that's a flavor they're trying to encompass with that hire. So this is a theme that will only accentuate even more as they win.
You're on this rare island where there's very few people that talk to both sides. There's people that are on the Michigan State side. They know how the administration or the football operation works. And then there's the flip side of there's people that are on the high school circuit for basketball. They're on the AAU circuit. They're plugged in there. You talk to both sides. I know you do. What, from your understanding, from having talked to both sides, is the Mel Tucker pitch? I saw him on Twitter. I see him on private planes. I can see that. Justin Spiro can see that. Justin Spiro's not getting recruited to play nickel corner for Mel Tucker anytime soon. What is his pitch? What is he telling? Oh, and his staff as an extension of him.
Yeah.
What's the sales pitch?
That you get what you see at Michigan State. This is a guy, Mel Tucker, when he comes and he sits in. I had a signee's parent text me this last week when Tucker was on the road. He said the Mel Tucker that they saw on campus when they did their official visit was the exact same Mel Tucker they got for 3 hours in their living room down in Georgia this past week. This is a guy that he comes down there, he comes into your home, and you will never be able to tell he's a football coach. He's a guy you can just sit down for 3 hours with and have lunch. And that's something that he said that he could not say about any of the other 33 coaches that offered his son. So this is a guy that also then portrays his program in the same way, and people believe it. They know that this is a genuine guy who sat with me for 4 hours like a regular dude, and his program will have that same family atmosphere and someone we can go count on sending our son there, and he'll be comfortable, won't get homesick, won't want to transfer. And it's just one of those genuine dude type of things, that vibe that he gives off. So when he says something like, your kid's going to have every opportunity to play here, we're going to treat him like our own son, we're going to focus on his development, people believe that because of what they've gotten to know Mel Tucker as throughout all these interactions. So the pitch might not be that much different than everyone else, but the effectiveness comes from the persona that he has built up through his interactions with them.
He's sheer force of personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's a genuine guy.
Yep.
He's not going to go down south, and I don't know what coach would ever do this, but like pretend to have a Southern accent, for example. Because nobody would ever do that. But that may be a cartoonish example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's the Brian Kelly thing. Look, for the record, I think Brian Kelly's a hell of a coach. There's probably not 10 better in the country on the college level. If you have Mel Tucker walking into your house, and then Brian Kelly's the next day, like just the guy, take the program out of it.
Right.
How do you go to Brian Kelly? Like it just to me, Mel Tucker. If you're a kid, I mean, I get it. Maybe the dad will like Brian Kelly more, but if you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, Mel Tucker's got a lot of, for lack of a better term, kind of sex appeal. Like
swag is probably how we'd say it.
Swag, yeah. Just he's got a lot of a lot to sell just to a kid. I'm so impressed with what he's done. You're a buyer in this stuff. You're the expert in this lane, but just David, who's more of the basketball side of the expertise. You're kind of, I'd say, at my level on the football side. Aren't you pretty optimistic, big picture? Because we get made fun of, like the Royal Michigan State. We get made fun of for like buying into this stuff. I'm a buyer. I think he's actually going to have this program in the college football playoff and not lose by 100 points.
Yeah, I think when he came out and said that he thinks that Michigan State is capable of winning a national championship at here, right? After what we've seen and, the experience that we had the first go around in the college football playoff, which did not go obviously as we hoped. But I think the way that he's carried himself and how he's spoken is what he truly believes. Like he's not putting fluff into the fan base. He thinks that they can win. They can make another college football playoff. They can win a national championship here. And he's starting to go out and do it. And it's going to be built brick by brick. But I think that this was obviously a very good start. I just like that the administration ponied up and we're finally sitting at the big boy table. And that's the thing that maybe I took away the most. It's the money that they were willing to pay him, but also to pay the assistants for the upgrade to the facilities. Like for so long, Michigan State's been on that second tier. And to say, like, no, you're not going anywhere. We're going to pay you for 10 years and $90 million. Like, you're not going anywhere. Like, I think that was just a step up to the plate moment for the entire program and the university in itself. And I think it really changes the way that Michigan State should be viewed nationally. And a lot of people are pushing back on it because they don't want to see us at the table. So I think all around, I'm very, very excited. I'm bought in 100% on that. Like you said, I'm more of the basketball guy than the football guy. I'm getting my information from Justin and everybody else, but I'm in for sure.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And Michigan State, the institution, got us about 65, 70% of the way there in terms of the money, 75, whatever it is. I haven't done the math.
Yeah.
And then, the boosters came in and pushed them over the top. But if Michigan State doesn't make that initial commitment where he was the 11th highest paid coach in the country without any phone calls to Ishbia or St. Andre, then they're not in a position to give them the raise and go with their hand out to those guys. So they get
credit both those guys, right? Stepping up to the plate and to be able to have backers in the university to step up and say, we're not letting you go anywhere because we know what the eventual outcome of you sticking around is. I think that was a huge thing too. So credit both of them for writing the check to knowing that this is best for the university as a whole, because the way that the university works is a trickle-down effect. The money comes in through the program, and what they pay out is going to come 10 times down through the program over the years that he's a coach. So
the increase in applications just from beating Michigan was a huge boost to the university as a whole. So it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and I hate like the fuddy-duddies. Someone tweeted at me a couple days ago, like that money should be going to the science department. It's like the science department doesn't generate any revenue. Like they are funded. They're very well funded, by the way. Like Michigan State's an incredible research university. I hate the fuddy-duddy stuff. I'm all on board. Everything that they're doing. There's nothing that I don't like what they're doing.
Yep.
So I think who was it? Coward. It was Colin Coward. Came out and said the big boy table thing. They are going from tier 2 to tier 1. I don't know. Bama, that's probably a little ambitious, but I think they can regularly be every third year either in the playoff or 1 week to go, 1 game to go, they're on the doorstep. I think that's highly attainable. Is that right?
Do you remember what Clemson was before Dabo Swinney?
They were a lot worse than Michigan State's been the last 10 years, other than the lowest of the low.
You know what blueprint Clemson followed to become who they are? They found a little bit of success. They recruited like crazy, kind of like Mel Tucker's doing now. And once they got near the top, they put tons of money into their program and made it a sustainable program. That's the blueprint that they're trying to follow here. So you start to sniff the playoff, and then you double down one more time. They have a huge facility coming out pretty soon. You can start to follow the Clemson model and not be a blue blood, not be a powerhouse, and transform yourself into one throughout that Clemson model. And I don't want to give a number of how many playoff appearances I think you can get. Plus, it'll drastically change if there's an expansion. But the blueprint is out there now. Do what Clemson did. Do what Dabo Swinney did, where you just get every penny you can at the first sign of success. And you can build a sustainable winning power in this era of the arms race.
And say what you want. Look, I have a painting of Mark D'Antonio commissioned on my wall. I have 2 giant pictures of him on my wall. So I love Mark D'Antonio. But the program, the university as a whole, D'Antonio's era was a half measure. Not in terms of him. He was fantastic. But the investment in the program, the facilities, the money particularly allocated to the assistants. It was a half measure program financially. And with that half measure, they got, they're arguably the best team in the country in 2013. They got to the college football playoff in 2015. They derailed 2 undefeated Ohio State teams that were the favorites or co-favorites in Vegas to win it at the time they beat them, once at a neutral site, once in the horseshoe. If they could get relatively pretty goddamn close, where you could make an argument where they were, I mean, they finished AP second in the country in 2013.
Yep.
A lot of people thought college football playoff era, that team we'd be talking about the national champions right now. If they could get there, not half-ass is selling them short. They weren't half-assing it, but they weren't doing it like this. They didn't have this many chips in the center. That, I think, is the best argument. Look, people are acting like it's insane for Michigan State to be in this conversation.
Yeah.
They were on the door, knocking on the door outside of the nightclub already, doing half this stuff.
Yeah, and D'Antonio, so I had Curtis Daniel on my show, who Twitter name is Fritty Lock. He's one of the Georgia point of contacts for Mel Tucker and Coach D. He said that when Coach D and him talk about their efforts with donors now, present day, one of D'Antonio's regrets is he did not get everything squeezed out of the lemon back when they were at the top. So D'Antonio's now like fully on board with helping Tucker get this money because he knows he kind of missed out on some opportunities back then. So he's aware of that. So it's not unfair criticism at all for us to talk about that in that regard. So you're absolutely right. If they would have gotten everything out of that 2013, 2015 kind of run, maybe you don't have the fall off with the recruiting, and you don't have the talent fall to where it is, even after the Blackwell stuff. So yes, you're absolutely right. They have gotten to that stage on the field in terms of success. They just didn't get all the money out of it while they were up there. And now you have a coach that will get the money fully invested in the program if he just gets to the level that Michigan State already got to within the past decade.
Well, I know it's passe to say now. It's maybe even taboo, but hug a billionaire near you today. So hug your favorite billionaire, because that's the only reason this guy's still here, and thank God for that. Before we move on, one last bit on this whole recruiting, signing day, and also you could attach the transfer portal to it. For the love of God, please tell me the secondary has been addressed in some fashion.
Secondary is in the process of being addressed.
You're finishing up.
No. So right now,
I'm going back to the bar. I'll be back. Yeah.
So right now, I think they're shooting for 7 or 8 total transfer additions. They've gotten 4, and they're actively looking for cornerbacks, offensive tackles, maybe another defensive end, maybe another safety. But that is what their primary target is for this last half of the portal class. Along with, I love the defensive back pickups they got coming out of high school. Not all of them will play as freshmen, but I believe there are about 3 guys that will play. And Charles Brantley in the last year's class was a guy that I thought would play right away. He was banged up for most of the year, so we didn't really get to see what a true Charles Brantley freshman season is like. But there's a guy in this class, Caleb Coley, 3-star from Georgia, which, if you know me, that's all you need to hear. 3-star from Georgia, you're perfect. That's solid. So he's a guy that I think will have a Charles Brantley kind of freshman year, or better if he's healthy. So right now you're already looking at Charles Brantley at one side of corner, maybe Caleb Coley, but you don't really need to rely on him. And if you can get a portal stud to put at cornerback one on the other side, then you have portal corner, you have Charles Brantley, then you have Ronald Williams battling for one of the backup spots, and you're at a pretty good spot there. So I need them to get one portal corner, and Xavier Henderson sounds like he might be coming back, needs to improve coverage skills, especially with what we saw in November, but he was in very bad shape physically by then. He was banged up like crazy. Angelo Gross, we'll see. I'd like to see maybe Jaden Mangum step in, true freshman, play at free safety, maybe move Gross closer to the line, move Snow back. But there are pieces there that if they can get one or two additions, the entire room will be much, much better.
And I think the linebacking core, what they've done there,
huge.
Like, I know Crouch had some issues in coverage, but very good on the other side. Do you buy that he's leaving? Because I've heard that rumor.
So
you know, but you don't want to say it.
Let me put it this way.
Various Crouch, a linebacker that was transferred in the last year from, was it Tennessee?
Yes.
Tennessee, yeah.
So Q Crouch is a guy, when he was at Tennessee, his linebackers coach was the guy that got deals done. He was not a coach. He was a guy that was there for recruiting purposes.
Right, John Calipari.
He, before that in high school, was mostly a running back. When he got to Michigan State, that was his first time finally having a real linebackers coach. With that said, he had all the tools, he had all the athleticism, finally got coaching. You would think that he would embrace coaching a little bit better than he did. And a lot of those breakdowns that were happening on the field, let's just say they were not because of the play call and they're because of the play execution. And after you've given someone enough chances, you'd like to see things go a different way. And the Maryland game that he missed and the Penn State game that he missed, you start putting two and two together and things were just not satisfactory for the coaching staff. We'll see what happens here. The reason that it's tricky is because if he is asked to leave or if he decides to leave, you have the NFL. I don't see anybody really drafting him with the tape that he has right now, to be honest. Or you transfer again, and this time you have to sit out a year. So I don't see a way out for him, but at the same time, there's a lot that needs to change there. Yeah. So I'm not making any predictions of what's going to happen, and he's a good athlete. You just got to develop him a little more as long as he's willing to embrace that. But like you said, with the transfers at linebacker, they're set right there.
That Windman man from UNLV, I was pulling up his tape. This guy's a wrecking ball.
Violent.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
he's going to be a Spartan dog for sure.
Yeah, him, Holiday, and
Creme Brulee.
Aaron Brulee.
That Creme Brulee guy is supposed to be good.
Yep. Yeah. I think you put all three of those guys at linebacker out on the field. You put one of them on the line, so it's still a 4-2 if you look at it from afar, but really the personnel is 3-3 down there at the box. One of them just exclusively as an edge rusher. You're going to get pressure on the quarterback, which alone should help the secondary.
I lied. One more thing.
Yes.
I got to ask a question, too.
Jump in.
Yes. So, yeah. My question was, how many years does Scotty Hazelton have to show that the defense can
This is
be
a
better
good
than
question.
his first year?
That's exactly where I was going. Okay. So we're good.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that last night. Yeah. I know you would never miss a second of my show.
How much of it was personnel and how much of it was...
Was it schematics or was it coaching?
So,
was it the players, the personnel?
So here's what I'll say. So if you watch the Miami game, which is where a lot of the frustration from people started, because guys like Charleston Rambo, they were killing us on the edge. What he did in that game, regardless of how it frustrated and made the fans, that's exactly what he needed to do in that game. He needed to play cushion coverage 10 yards back, making sure everything stayed in front. They didn't give up any deep balls. Miami had to actually work for every drive. That was perfect. But at some point, once you start playing Michigan, once you start playing Purdue, once you start playing Ohio State, you need to get extra aggressive with blitzing. You just did not have the healthy guys at safety. Xavier Henderson was way too beat up to be covering guys in the slot against Ohio State. You just have to be extra reckless with your blitzing. If Ohio State's scoring on every single drive, you're not doing very well. So change something up. So there are flaws with his scheme by the end of the year, but when the frustration originally started, I do think it was unfair. Now, what I go back to is when he was at Kansas State, he was a guy that had a top 10, maybe top 12 defense in the nation. That's very hard to do in the Big 12. Very hard to do because those guys, they run and gun. That's the air raid. Nobody should ever have a top 12 defense in the Big 12. That's why Jim Knowles just got hired by Ohio State.
What did it start at when he got there? Do you know? Before
it was bad. It was outside of the top 16.
And he did it at Buffalo too.
Yeah.
Where is it Buffalo he was at, right?
I want to say it was North Dakota State. Maybe he was at Buffalo at some point, but he went from North Dakota State to Kansas State.
Wherever it was, I'm not saying they had a top 10 defense, but at both of his stops before Michigan State, the year before he got there, they were terrible.
Significant increase.
And they got up, they were like 70 rankings higher. Right. So it's like, we're firing this guy already? That's what I was getting to. I talked about it with Solari last night. Just search in Twitter, fire Scotty Hazelton.
Yeah.
Your computer might crash.
Yeah.
It's insane. I defended him publicly. I'm sorry. If he does suck, Mel Tucker would fire his son.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, this guy doesn't care. If you're not getting it done, we'll talk about one person he blew out off the staff that I know about that I found out a little bit more. If you're not getting it done, he doesn't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. You're out of there. I don't care if you're an usher or his DCOC. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I trust Tucker to assess that. But I also genuinely think Hazelton's good. I think he has chops.
Is the window 3 years? Is it 2 years?
It's less than 3. So I would give him
Well,
1 or 2.
This next year, the third year? Is that what
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so this is year 1.
So with COVID,
this is year 1. So
up to year 3, yes.
So he has next year
years.
still implementing, still getting your own guys to come in and run the system. I would assume year 3 is make or break time. Either the defense starts looking much better or it's...
Yeah. Here's what I'll say about Scotty. The resume he had when Mel Tucker hired him in terms of production was as good as you could hope for. So if you fire Scotty Hazelton, who do you hire? And does that guy look like a better candidate on day one than Scotty did when you hired him? I would say most likely not. The guy that I want to see Michigan State hire, hopefully down the road, is Doug Belk, the DC at Houston. But he's a guy that last year was his first year calling plays. And he had the 8th best total defense in the nation. But how is that different than what Scotty had at Kansas State? So, you see everyone looks like the perfect candidate while they're having success. But you give them Chester Kimbrough and some of these guys, they don't have such a good season. They don't look the same. So he needs another season. I don't believe they had the 130th best talent-wise defensive backs in the nation. So there's some valid criticism there. They might be 118th, 115th. So it was bad.
That was kind of debunked, though. I mean, that 130th out of 130 thing was debunked.
That's true.
Because their defensive efficiency against the pass was like 58th or something. Not good, but by definition, middle of the pack. So, that's a little bit
it is
misleading.
It is.
The whole he literally had the worst defense. That's just not true. It's just not true. Yeah. If Michigan State's moving the ball up and down the field, which some games they did, and they were in some shootouts, it's not the same as a Georgia Tech or Army or something. But whatever. We'll leave there. I like him. I like the acumen. I didn't see anything. I'm not saying there were no qualms. No coach is perfect. But I didn't see oh my God, Scotty's been blowing this entire third quarter. Right. What is he doing? I didn't have that moment. And I actually had some moments like that with Narduzzi, who I always defended. Yeah. And everyone wanted him gone. Yeah. So we'll move on. I want to talk about a topic that's sad for me, frankly. I have to say it like this. It's heartbreaking. Former Michigan State football player Kenneth Walker III. That sucks to say. It was not. It was a quick. It was a lightning bolt. It was a flare in the sky. He was not here even a full year. January 6th, he commits. Famously, the same day there was an insurrection at the White House, or at the Capitol, excuse me. And then in November 27th, plays against Penn State. Plays very well. He's done. 10 and a half, 11 months. Yeah. I don't want to do the whole Heisman thing. I'll just say for one more time for the record that I think it's a joke that he wasn't in New York. Yep. Generally speaking, David, we'll start with you. His legacy, he's done. He's not playing. He just announced. We'll throw his statement up there just for the viewers kind of in the background. He came out with that today. That's good, microscopic font, so no one can read that. But he's saying that he's not going to play in the Peach Bowl. He's starting his preparation for the NFL draft. The book's written. The book's closed. You can't do anything else. What's the Kenneth Walker legacy to you personally? How do you view him in context of the program? The program with 6 national titles. A lot of success over the years, particularly at his position.
I don't know how to answer it in the larger term because I'm not as much of a football guy. So I'll just speak to the here and now. What would this team have been without him this year? Like, how many wins do they have?
6.
He was 4 or 5 wins above replacement.
Right. So 6 wins, like a great piece that we'll always remember as the first real like Tucker bridge into what this could maybe be. This is like kind of the beginning, and we got to see him snag a guy from Wake Forest who had a very good season, turned him into almost a Heisman candidate. Imagine what he would have been had he had just a little bit better offensive line in front of him. If he had Michigan's offensive line, he would have won the Heisman.
Yeah.
So he came into a place that 100% believed in him. He believed in them back. I thought he was rewarded from that. He's going to get drafted in the NFL. We're going to have a skill player drafted in the NFL at Michigan State. I'm extremely happy about that because it's been quite a while. And I just think that it was just so enjoyable after like some brutal seasons stacked on brutal seasons that we had to watch kind of at the end of the D'Antonio until the beginning of this. And to be able to see him just like from the Northwestern game when he breaks loose that first one, just like, what? Like, this is what it is. So I think from just a fan perspective, the memories of what he'll be will continue to grow if this program achieves the levels that we think of. Because this is the beginning. We really got to see the beginning. He's going to be a special part of that. And I think when we get towards the end or the middle or wherever this ends up going, these years are going to be looked on so much more fond, and he will be remembered so much more fondly for really starting off what could be the ascension of Michigan State football. So that's how I'll remember the program.
I think that's a perfectly said.
Yep.
And when he was on the show with Connor Hayward, I wish, and this is not a shot at Ben. Ben kept the camera on the speaker, which was me. So Ben did his job. But I wish the camera had captured both of their faces when I said, this is right after the Northwestern win. So Michigan State's 1-0. And I said, hey, that was exciting. That Northwestern lost like 17 guys, whatever. As a Michigan State fan, I'll be thrilled with 6-6, even after we started 1-0. Technically, one as an underdog. I thrilled with 6-6. The faces that they made, it was not surprise. It was almost like bordering on anger. Both of them, especially Connor Hayward. But both of them looked at me like, fuck you, like 6-6, like fuck that. And then they do answer the question and say, and the camera goes back to them, still not thrilled, but the glaring eyes had disappeared. And said, we're not happy with that. Like, we want to win every game we play. I know they all say that. If you saw their reaction, that was not coach speak, player speak. They genuinely were like, fuck that. We're trying to win every game we play. We think we're very good. And I think my answer where I stood was, I think, pretty common. 6 wins, 7. It would have been a parade down Grand River. I think that would have come true, but for Kenneth Walker. I think that's what this team was. Not a bad team without him, but not what they did. That DK and I seem to agree. Are you kind of in that boat too? He was worth 4 or 5 wins, which for a running back, quarterback, that can happen. A running back in 2021 to be a 4 or 5 WAR guy? It's insane.
Yeah, that's true, because the whole reason that I kind of said that Michigan State would go 8-4, which everyone laughed at me for that. But that stemmed from me thinking that Kenneth Walker would end the season as the second back running back in the Big Ten behind Muhammad Ibrahim at Minnesota, who unfortunately I think tore his Achilles in the first week of the season. But I think Kenneth Walker would have been better than him had he played the whole year anyway. But I saw in the Kenneth Walker tape on January 7th, the day after that he committed, I sat down, I watched it. And this is a guy that Wake Forest has this weird scheme where their read option is like a 2-second thing where they hold the ball in the running back's gut, give him no time to make his own reads. And basically, Kenneth Walker was in the wrong system. The second that Coach Piegler put on that tape, he saw, this is a dude, you put him in our system, and this guy's a generational talent. And Piegler saw this. In 2 days, he landed him. From the day after he entered the portal, he got him here. So shout out to Coach Piegler. And what I saw out of Kenneth Walker, it was a guy that had speed, a guy that his strength should not have. He was running through tackles, carrying piles, and running to the edge and taking off for home runs. That was a combination I hadn't seen in college football since Saquon Barkley. It was something I hadn't seen at Michigan State in years. So with that perception I had of Kenneth Walker, it led to my 8-4. So for you to say I saw 6 wins and then us ending at 10 wins, that absolutely validates that he was 4 wins above replacement, I would say.
easily to me, and which again for the position's insane. To me, the most compelling stat for a running back, there's a few out there that are interesting. The most compelling to me is that yards after contact stat, because that's reflective of what are you overcoming. Because if Alabama's offensive line, which usually at any given time has 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder on it, is blowing Mack truck size holes for you, and you're just any decent Division I running back can be fast into a wide open hole. It's not to denigrate Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, but their offensive lines, they both had multiple first rounders on it. They had other guys that were drafted in the 4th round.
Yeah.
This team doesn't have that. So that yards after contact, which Kenneth Walker, I don't even think it was close. I think he led by a lot, but I know he was best in the country. That was compelling. And again, and DK said it, you look at the other contenders there. Hutchinson had Ojabo on the other side. Bryce Young, bevy of weapons, an offensive line top 3 to 5 in the country. Stroud, the 3 best receivers in the country, the best collection of 3 receivers in the country. So it's just Walker did the most with the least. To not be there was nuts. I look at him, I got a lot of shit for this. I said in my lifetime, Bubba Smith's fantastic. I got his jersey on my wall. I didn't see Bubba Smith play. He was already in Hollywood acting by the time I was born. To me, in my lifetime, best Michigan State football player I've seen. He's number 1. For 20 years, it was Charles Rogers for me. And I got called a prisoner of the moment for saying this. And I said, not that big of a prisoner of the moment. A prisoner of the moment would have said, it's Rogers. And then it would have been Ringer. And then it would have been Greg Jones. And then it would have been Connor Cook. I'm not that guy. I had the same guy for 20 years. I moved off. I know you're a young lad. You're a whippersnapper. But even if you don't agree, either you can jump in. Am I insane to say best player at Michigan State in the last 40 years? That's what I truly believe.
My recollection of Michigan State only goes back like 15 years.
But you're a student of the game.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Babe Ruth? You didn't see him play.
That's true.
You know Babe Ruth was better than Don Kelly.
Yeah.
You look at the impact as a historian even. To me, to me, he's the best. But you're on different timelines. You're on my timeline, but don't follow it as closely. Have you guys seen anybody better? Even just keep it to your.
I have not at Michigan State.
That's the best you've seen.
Yeah, and the thing of it is what he has done for the program goes far beyond just. First of all, you look at him, and I think he should be the running back 1 of this draft class. He might be running back 2, which still gives him a chance to be a first-round pick because I believe on average there's 2.5 running backs taken in the first round a year. Either way, talent-wise, he's a borderline first-round pick. Now set aside the talent. He is a guy that has sped up this rebuild by himself by a year or 2. He has put Michigan State on the map in states on the other side of the country like Washington, where I talked to Caleb Presley, a 2023 4-star, Texas, California. He has transcended his actual on-field impact, and he has kind of become the face of Michigan State football in a 4 or 5 year stretch where Michigan State desperately needed that. He came in, he basically led the charge for the Mel Tucker era, and he gave Mel Tucker, who's a coach that will absolutely milk everything out of this opportunity, he gave him an opportunity to brand Michigan State to college recruits all across the nation. You don't have Kenneth Walker. Yeah, sure, Jaden Reed and Peyton Thorne's flea flickers, they do a little bit of engagement on Twitter. But you get a guy like Kenneth Walker, and he changes the program, especially this early and especially with a coach that knows how to use a resource like that. So a lot of what will happen here at Michigan State in the future, especially with their efforts in the portal, you can directly give credit to Kenneth Walker for that. And he has, I don't want to say changed the program, but he has elevated the program, and he has dramatically helped this rebuild.
He's a fast forward button. He's a huge fast forward button.
Huge fast forward button.
Have you seen anybody better? And you're my age. You're 34.
I mean, Le'Veon Bell was pretty special, but yes,
not better than Kenneth Walker, though. I mean, not by any measure.
No.
Yeah, it's just
I have to see at the NFL level a little bit, but he's saying in college, just strictly college.
Well, college, yeah. I mean, Charles Rogers has been my number 1 for 20 years. There's been a lot of Spartans that did better in the NFL, but just purely college. Yeah. I mean, he's the best I've seen. And here's what I don't think is debatable, because I think the Charles Rogers thing is debatable. I don't think, it's obvious it's not Charles Rogers. What is not debatable to me, and I don't even want to hear a debate, and you can cross into basketball, hockey, or you pick the sport. There has never been, in the history of Michigan State, we can go into the 60s, someone that had this type of impact in 1 year. Wasn't Jaren Jackson. Wasn't Deonta Davis. Magic Johnson was here 2 years. Nobody in 11 months has come in. There's no one and done. I mean, football usually doesn't happen. This was a unique situation with the transfer. This was like Russell Wilson from NC State to Wisconsin. It was that level. And honestly, probably even more than that, because I think you laid it out. Mel Tucker will be carrying that through than Wisconsin did or even really needed to. They were already kind of humming. I just think he has, in the history of Michigan State athletics, and if we're looking at his legacy, nobody has had a better season and a greater impact in 11 months that was only here for less than one calendar year. Who's the counter argument?
You know, the proof of that, there's never been a Walter Camp winner in the history of Michigan State football. He won it, and like you said, he only did it in 1 year. So in terms of what he got out of 1 year, you simply can't top that. People haven't topped that in their entire careers. Now, I only mean that in regards to that reward. There are other running backs here that have way dominated the greatness that Kenneth Walker has achieved, but winning the Walter Camp for the first time in Michigan State history, and like you said, being here in 11 months, you put those two things under the same microscope, and yeah, there's no way to come to any conclusion other than what you've said.
It's the greatest single season in Michigan State history in terms of weighing the performance, the context of the performance,
the expectations,
expectations, and the impact. Mm-hmm. You laid out. You said it better than I could have ever dreamt of. The speeding up a rebuild multiple years. Mm-hmm. This is going to his year. Yeah, 2021 was a blast, but this is going to echo into the next few years for the reasons you laid out. To me, his legacy is the greatest Michigan State football player of the modern era, whether you want to cut that at post-65, some people say 1970, wherever you want to cut it. Let's say post-Bubba Smith era, where we were winning the national title every other year. The greatest Michigan State football player of the modern era. That's his legacy to me. One of the best Michigan State athletes ever. I hope he goes to the NFL and breaks Emmitt Smith's rushing record. I hope he does great, but irrespective of any of that, I think he has he's in the Mount Rushmore in terms of impact in 1 year. I have never seen anything like it in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So I'm not insane. I feel good. So this is you've been such a good sport, David, because I don't know this shit either.
Come on, this is the first time I got to meet Justin in person. I'm excited about the whole thing. You were very. I'm learning about football on the records. Perfect.
He's the best. But this is where you're gonna get. You're gonna be a little bit of a ball.
Swing the ball's swinging to me.
Yeah, it's gonna be swinging to you. Or you're gonna play some ISO. You're gonna play some ISO ball here. So yeah, this is gonna be Allen Iverson, to use your Philly reference for you, Justin. We're gonna be standing around hoping maybe you'll pass every fourth possession. So I want to transition to the basketball team. I have a lot of opinions about Michigan State basketball generally, always, every year. I'm an opinionated guy to a fault, probably. I don't
heard that about you.
Yeah. As you know, we have a lot of mutual friends, and my mutual friends, they're your friends and they hate me, but they know me. I do not have strong opinions about this team, other than that I know that I like them. Like on a personal level, I like the group. I don't know what to make of where they're going, where they can go. For the context of where we're sitting right now, they're 9-2. I think the next game's Oakland in like 10 days.
It's Tuesday, coming up this Tuesday at LCA.
Shit, time flies, man. So we're quick. 5 days away. So we got some downtime. So this will not age poorly in terms of people watching this late. 9-2. We have them 12th in the AP right now. Preseason unranked. Mm-hmm. This year's going pretty well. That's an objective truth. No one can argue that. I watch this team and I get shades of what I saw a decade ago in Indianapolis with the Butler team, not the one that beat Michigan State in 2010 under ridiculous circumstances with no foul, but the following year in 2011, where they end up finishing runner-up, they lose, and the worst title game ever to UConn, the Kemba Walker team. So I pulled this comparison. I'm going to put it up there, and I want you, the basketball expert, to tell me if I'm insane. So this is what I'm looking at. This is that Butler team from a decade ago to this year's Michigan State team. Mm-hmm. They both have what I would argue is an A-plus coach. Brad Stevens, Tom Izzo. No defined alpha. Matt Howard, Mack, who was it? I don't even know who it is on Michigan State. I don't think they have one. No pending lottery picks. There's no one on either of these teams that's, they're projected to be. I mean, for the next year. Maybe Christie gets there, but he's not on any mock draft to be in next year's lottery. conference champion pedigree. They both have multiple players on the team that have been a role player or more on a team that won their conference. So I know Michigan State's not the defending, but they have guys that did win, Gabe Brown and Hall. Both unranked in November. They were off the radar. Now we know what happened with Butler. Butler finishes the NCAA runner-up. It was a horrible game, but they were, tied in the second half with UConn. They could have won. It was a horrible game. They were very close to winning after Gordon Hayward leaves. Everything else lines up here to me. A lot of similarities. The analytics, if you look into them, they were within 2 points per game of averaging the same offense. They're mirror images. Do you see any potential for this team on the right, that Michigan State team, to mimic the performance of the left? Not saying you're predicting it, but ceiling.
We've already bought tickets to Louisiana.
Well, listen, NOLA's a great place. I think it's better than Vegas for the record.
I'm clarifying, though. I'm not saying you're predicting it will happen. But in terms of ceiling, can they get there? Is there a road for this team to get there?
I got to see a little bit more, right? We got to see against some of the stronger opponents that we're going to see during the course of the conference. I want to see what they look like against Illinois. They only play Purdue once. It's at home towards the end of the season. I think OSU is twice, if I remember that correctly, once towards the end of the year, but I think they play them twice. Illinois, they play twice. So I want to see what they look like against the top of the conference before I'm making some sweeping generalities about it. I think it's a very, very good start. I think that they have done everything that they needed to begin the season. If I was looking at what they had for the matchups, I would say in my mind 9-2 is what the ceiling for that was in the early part. I did not think they were going to beat Kansas game one. I thought Kansas is a national championship contender. I think that they've shown that, the Dayton loss aside, which was a little bit, whatever. We've seen a bunch of teams during the course of this season so far get dropped. I mean, we watched Purdue basically rise up to number one, and they're congratulating. They had I don't know if you saw it, but they had a video thing where all these guys are congratulating. It's the first time that Purdue had been number one, and they lost to Rutgers the very night that they did the video.
It's within 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost too poetic, and I think that that's what we've seen. I think when we originally looked at the beginning part of this general landscape for college basketball, I would say there was maybe 2 or 3 teams that you thought were kind of near the top. You thought Gonzaga, maybe Kansas was in that mix. Baylor was kind of like a top 5-ish. Now they're number one, and I think they're a legitimate contender. Mm-hmm. I think the top 7 teams in the country can definitely cut down the nets. Arizona's part of that mix. And you just look across the board. There's no unbeatable team. That's basically what we've seen. We saw Alabama beat Gonzaga and have a war against Houston. They just lost to Memphis, who's been reeling. So I think that the way that you look across all of college basketball, there's, in my mind, not an unbeatable team. Michigan State's playing unbelievable defense right now. They're top 6 in the entire country. I did not see this coming. I thought the offense was going to be better than the defense, which is funny. I've always believed in Marcus Bingham being a true paint anchor for this team. I have been pounding the drum for 3 years on it, and I've been laughed at, and it finally is coming to realization. And even for what I've seen, maybe I didn't even see this version of 10-8 type guy, capable of blocking 3 shots a game and really, holding it down on both sides of the paint. I just think if you look at all the pieces across the board, they fit. This team likes each other, which if you're looking across just down the road to Ann Arbor, I don't think you can say the same thing, and we can talk about that a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think the chemistry is on par with as many teams that we've seen all across the years. I think chemistry and do the pieces fit is 85%. You need the talent, don't get me wrong. But if you have the talent, do the pieces and the chemistry work out? And for this team, it is. So I want to see it against better quality teams. And we've seen it against, UConn, Loyola, both very nice wins. We kind of got blown out in the second half against Kansas and Baylor, both 2 top 5 teams. So I'm not overreacting to that. But I think that as the conference continues, if they continue to rack up wins against quality teams, this is a team that can be more than a second weekend team, which is what I thought they were coming into the season. This is a team that maybe could go on a run, and I'm not there yet, but I like what I've seen so far. I think there's a lot of excitement to be had about this team. So
I like them, and the reason I brought in Butler is because I think they represent the best possible manifestation of this concept where anytime you look at the Michigan State box score, this is not a scientific statistic, but just sort of me as the dude checking in on, hey, like, how do we play tonight? I watch, but then I like the box. I'm a box score guy. You have 7 guys that scored somewhere between 6 and 15 points. Like it's like every night that you don't have this. Like Butler was the same way. It's like, yes, Mack and Howard were their 2 leading scorers, but then you have a guy that was like 1.5 points behind them, and another guy that was 2 points behind. It's you have 5, 6, 7 guys within 6, 7 points of each other. It seems like a collection of B minus players, and that sounds like an insult. It's not. Like a B player is good. You're well above average for your level. It's not the common path to great success. I mean, national title is one thing, but even on a conference level, even what we've seen in East Lansing, Denzel Valentine, clear alpha of that team. Whatever you think of him personally, but he was the guy when he ascended. Cassius Winston, Mateen Cleaves, Kalen Lucas, Draymond Green. That's typically how it's looked. Aaron Henry, I guess, last year by default, but that team also didn't do anything. It barely made the tournament. I wonder, do you think an alpha, and Justin, either one, you guys can both chime in, does an alpha need to emerge for them to get to where they want to go? And if so, who is it? Because I don't know who it is. I mean, Gabe Brown,
you go first.
Gabe Brown's I
Here-
love Gabe Brown, but Gabe Brown's kind of like a goofball to be an alpha.
He's not though anymore. That's not the role that he's
not the
playing
silly
on this
dance
team.
guy.
He's not the silly dance guy anymore. I think that he's taken steps this year. I think the first thing that I would say about him is his goofball energy that we saw on the bench is now materializing itself on the court. He's the guy that's the spark plug for this team. He's the guy that goes out and in multiple games this year when the offense is struggling to start and they're leaning on the defense, which is, as we spoke about, very good, and they're able to do that, which is why I like this group. He's the guy that goes out and scores 8 or 10 points in the first half to be able to carry some of that. He's the guy that's now creating his own shot, which is something that he did not do during the course of his career. I was looking at some stats on Bart Torvik, and he's a guy that last season, I think that like his mid-range shot, he was creating like 85% of the shots were assisted. This season it's 35%. 50% less of the shots that he's getting in the mid-range are from his own making. So he's putting the ball on the deck. He's taking a little step back. He's wiggling some guy and then putting it up. And we've seen it during the course of that. His ability to be able to create his shot and for the offense to lean on him on occasion is something that I did not see coming into this season. I thought that guy was going to have to be Max Christie. And for him to be able to take that mantle in some point, I think is a huge, huge thing for where this team is going. But they're so balanced. What do you do when you're looking at scouting this team? You're looking across it. You have probably 6 to 7 guys that can put double digits on you every night. So you're looking up the down scouting part, like, well, you got to watch out for this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy. Well, this guy has scored 10 2 or 3 times. This guy scored 10. Like Julius Marble won the game against UConn for us. Like him and AJ Hogard carried us to a victory in the Bahamas, the two of them, and they've had kind of an up and down season for parts of it. But I think that's what I like about the team the most, that at the moments where they need to step up, there's various guys that are doing it. And to me, that's a team mentality that comes down from the coaching staff there, and it bleeds into the program. And it just feels like a Michigan State team to me.
And as long as you have that production where, like you were saying, and like DK just said, where if you look at a box score and you have about 7 guys that are scoring between 8 and 15 points, as long as that stays being a commonplace for this team, you don't need an alpha. You can have sustained success from multitude of pieces where, okay, so now maybe if they get in a rut later on and like 3 or 4 of those guys stop producing, then maybe you'll be like, okay, we need an alpha. But I don't really see that happening. So as long as the production keeps going the way it's going now and there's a multitude of guys that are putting the ball in the basket, to answer your question, no, I don't think you need an alpha.
It is a weird team, and you alluded to it, DK. Like, you'll have a guy who, you used Marble as the example, but you could use several, where you'll have a guy who's like literally, if you were awarding player of the game, you would give it to this guy this night, and the next night he's got a donut and like either didn't play much or didn't do anything.
Malik Hall.
I mean, Malik Hall's been player of the game a few times, and he's had a few games where he did nothing. Yeah. Cassius Winston didn't have any games when, by the time he was a junior, they did nothing. Denzel Valentine's senior year, he had games that were better than others. He didn't have any donuts or 4-point games. I just, this is a weird team, and it's not a criticism. It's not like weird in a bad way. It's just it's an outlier from how it normally looks, not just for Michigan State, but for good teams generally. So, I mean, you guys seem to be on the same page here. I don't know, but you guys seem to agree. They really don't need one. Is there? You don't think like you're in the Elite Eight? You're in that Duke game from a couple years ago. It's a mimic of that. You don't think they're? I mean, Winston, everything ran through him. It may have ended up in Kenny Goins' hands, but it's running through Winston, and Winston's going to dictate what happens. You don't think they need to have that guy? It can be kind of a bullpen by committee thing.
Yeah, they're starting to see Tyson Walker emerge as the guy capable of stirring the drink for the rest of the roster. I think 12.5 points per game, 6 assists, like to 2.5 turnovers. The last 2 conference games that he's played, he's stealing a couple balls. He actually is a great defender. If you're looking at the point guard spot in the conference, kind of down this year, I think he's probably the best two-way guy in the whole conference. And I know his scoring hasn't quite been there, but the transition to come from Northeastern and come play for Tom Izzo, playing for Tom Izzo at the point guard spot is probably one of the hardest jobs in all of America in college basketball. He is a demanding son of a gun. He wants you to have some freedom, but there's also rules in place. And it took him 10, 11 games to be able to figure it out. And the last 2 games, we saw a lot more of the version that we saw in Northeastern where he's creating off the dribble. He's getting to the rim when he wants. He's pulling up from little step backs. Like, he's starting to find the version of himself that played low, mid-major ball at the Big Ten level. And that should be scary for the rest of the conference, because if he's able to sustain what we've seen over the last couple games throughout the course of the season, Michigan State's outlook goes from very solid to potentially great, in my opinion. He's the real deal, I think.
Yeah. So I agree with everything DK said about Tyson Walker, especially if you look at the last week. And now what you said about a guy like Cassius Winston never having a bad game and you kind of needing a guy like that in March. Well, so Cash never had a bad game, and that's kind of why we look at that sort of a team mold and say, man, it could be really useful to have a guy like Cassius. But you look around in March over the years, there have been a lot of teams where they have one guy carrying the load, where if he has a bad game on a particular day in March and you don't have anyone else to turn to, that could be a 2 seed getting knocked out right away. So I almost have more hope when it comes to a Michigan State team in March that has 7 or 8 guys, that any of those 8 can come out and have an 18-point game on a given day than I would maybe if the entire offensive production was coming from one guy. Now, with that said, I think Ty Walker can be that guy. And what I've seen from him in the last 3 games in terms of aggressiveness, whether it's getting to the basket or even just pulling up, I do really, really like Ty Walker. And I do think he can be the guy that is what the Michigan State offense is kind of structured around. But even if he doesn't, I don't think it's that much of a negative where in March you have a lot of guys you can rely on a little bit, as opposed to one guy you rely on a lot. And then you worry about, okay, is this dude really all our production? If he gets shut down on a Saturday in the second weekend, is that it?
We saw it in 2019 with Cash gets shut down. They put Jarrett Culver on Texas Tech on him, who was an NBA draft pick, I think top 5. They put him down with his length. He got shut down. And I know he was on one leg at the end of that game. It was partially he did not have a backup point guard, which this year we do.
Yep.
Got to give credit to A.J. Hogard for the way that he transformed his body and the way that he's looked so far this year. But I think that Justin is 100% right on that, where you look at the wealth of scoring being spread out a little bit. It's scary. You want a guy to be able to lean on when he gets down to crunch time and there's 2 or 3 minutes left and you need a bucket. Who are you laying on? For sure, that has to be figured out. And I think that there's a combination of a couple guys, Tyson Walker, Gabe Brown, Max Christie, you can get there. I believe it.
Eventually, yep. I agree.
But shots got to start falling, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think generally speaking, there's a lot to be excited about with the fact that at least the production's being spread out. So, like you said, Malik Hall popped off for 24 points against Loyola, for 25, whatever he did. Then he has, like a donut. Then he pops off for 15, then whatever. And he's starting to get more consistent, but guys are stepping up in the moments when you need them to, and it just makes it very difficult to stop MSU when you have multiple guys that are capable of scoring 12, 15 points a night. So
you're Graham couching it a little bit. I'm going to pin you down. I'm not going to let you get away with it. The ceiling. The ceiling. Can this team be in the Final Four and not get their doors blown off like 2015 necessarily. Like, is this a national title contender even on the fringe where if things fall into place? Again, not your prediction.
We're 11 games into the season. I mean, what do you want me to say?
You want me to bring you on? You want to bring you on after they make it or don't make it?
We don't have to make it.
The whole point is it's a
Can we go through the meat of Big Ten conference play?
I want
Can I
your
get it
opinion now.
Okay, so they got a stretch. They have a stretch at the end of January and the beginning of February where they go on the road 4 games and they get Michigan squeezing at home in that. So you go 4-1 or 3-2 in that stretch, and I will look you in the eye and say this is a team that's capable of making, depending on who they beat during the course of that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's certain stretches of the season. You're asking me to predict what they are when they've been tested in the Bahamas very well. Otherwise, outside of that, they haven't 100% been tested in the 2 games that they were against what I would consider national championship quality teams. Yep. They hung in for a half and they got blown out the second. So you're asking me to predict something when I need to see more games against quality opponents. I'm not going to do it. I don't know what to tell you.
This is why I bring you in.
Yeah, I'm a realist.
On March 3rd, hey, is this team any good? So this is why you're here.
So this is what Spiro wants.
Yeah.
Guys, Michigan State fans, I'll see you in New Orleans.
There you go. You didn't have to go that strong.
Listen, no. Listen, so here's the thing. So Michigan, the first time Michigan State plays Michigan is 7th game of conference play, right?
I don't even, is it the 7th? It's either the 6th or the 7th. I think you're right, close, yeah.
So I don't think it's a stretch to say Michigan State will be 7-0 before they play Michigan.
It's so hard to win in that conference, though.
Yeah. So they have to go on the road to Northwestern. It's a sneaky game.
Yeah, they have played really well.
And they lost last year, and they ran some stuff where they had like 4 guys up across like the free throw line, and they raised the defense a little bit and took out the rim protector from the equation.
But is Bowie still there?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, Chase Uddy. Pete Nance is actually having a very nice season. If he was on a different team, he would be in the top 2 probably all conference marks. I think he's having like a 50, 40, 90 type season. Nobody's talking about because it's Northwestern. They're terrible. But that's a sneaky team that you have to go on the road and win, which they did against Minnesota. We saw Michigan struggles at home. I was getting some flack for saying that was a pretty quality win for that. Ben Johnson's done a very, very nice job with the quality of that. Jamison Battle's a real dude. So I don't know,
So I guess the reason what I was kind of getting at was they could start 6-1 or 7-0 going into that Michigan game. And what Michigan State has accomplished so far is great, but they have done it without the Max Christie I expect to emerge. They have done it without a Ty Walker that we're going to see the rest of the year. I know the last week is good, but most of what they've accomplished this year has been without the Ty Walker we're going to get now. And they have done it with, I guess the rest of the pieces pretty much they've done what I've expected. But those are 2 key pieces. Max Christie, who coming into the season could have been one of their best players, and Ty Walker just now finding his groove. And they have already been the best. Are they number 1 in Ken Palm on defense?
No, 6.
Okay, so they're a top 6. They're a top 6 defense. They have done it without those 2 pieces in some form or fashion, which I believe they'll have going forward now. And they're already 9-2 and 12th in the AP poll. So what they have accomplished now is great, and I think they'll be a better team throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, injuries are a concern, especially when you're banking 2 scholarships for some reason. But if
Justin wants to touch on that,
I can go on that rant for a while.
Sneaking in that little shot.
But yeah, so like that's where my hope comes in. Is I can see them being 6-1 or 7-0 going into Michigan, which you're already on a good. You're making good progress to a top 3 seed if that's the kind of start you have in Big Ten play. And I just think this team will only be better from here on out for the reasons I mentioned. And the Big Ten, anybody's beatable these days, like DK was saying earlier. So everything is in front of them. This team is not close to peaking yet. And I think that they have a chance to get a pretty good seed heading into the tournament. And if you have a team that's well-rounded, you can make a run. Now, things need to go right. Like I said, injuries being one of them. But the pieces are there.
That's huge. Yeah. The bracket's huge.
Yeah, but the pieces are there to have a ceiling where you could make a Final Four. Well, but I think need to see
the floor of what I saw this team being is already higher than what I expected. Let's start.
Oh, I agree with that. Yes. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. I'm trying to pull up what seed was Butler in that tournament because they were what, 5th seed, 6th seed. They were not.
I'm not sure.
They were not like a hot shot.
So
program.
I think that it's important for Michigan State to stay off that, like, I'm trying to think, like the 5-6 plays it. So if they end up being a 3 or 4 seed, which I think that the way that it's shaping up, it's going to be.
Butler was an 8. I thought they were like 6th, 8th.
Wow.
I was just looking it up, but
yeah. So they had a uphill battle to be able to make that. Yeah. But I generally agree with him, Justin. What Justin was saying in terms of
8 seed.
We've seen some of the floor of this team and the ceiling's still out there, and I think that's the exciting part, right?
Yes.
Like a couple of the guys haven't played up exactly to that, and maybe we should get into the Max Christie debate because I'm sure. At least for me, I've had DMs, I've had people messaging me saying, like, what's up with the shot not falling? What's going on? I dug into it. I watched all the shots that he's taken over the course of 11 games. I still think the jumper's 100% pure. It does not look to me like he needs any type of, like, tweak in the mechanics. I think that what we've seen from him so far is a little bit underwhelming from what we thought coming into it. But I also think that there's a juxtaposition if you look at what Jaden Akins went through his last year of high school competition versus what Max Christie did. And I think that in a certain regard, Jaden Akins had a benefit for getting kicked off that EFC prep team because he wasn't going to learn the defensive principles. He wasn't going to learn a role. He came from a Sunrise Christian team where I'm sure that you guys aren't that familiar with it, but Kenny Chandler's at Tennessee looking like
one of the best players in the country.
Yes. Loaded. Kendall Brown's at Baylor, winning program. Zach Clemens is at Kansas. He's going to have a very good role and be a very good player for a long time. They had guys up and down the roster that were playing high-level D1 basketball. Akins came in late into the game. He had to assimilate to a role. And what we saw in the beginning part of the season is very similar to what he had when he was at Sunrise Christian. He was coming in where before he had the ball in his hands all the time. They're asking him to play off the ball, and they're saying, we need your hustle, we need your energy, we need your defense. Luke Barnwell is the coach at Sunrise Christian. I think he's done an unbelievable job with that program. And Akins came into this prepared because he's seen athletes that are bigger, stronger, longer, faster. And it's not any offense to the decision that Christie made. He decided to play with his brother. He decided to stay in the Chicago suburbs. He was playing the center spot in the 2-3 zone for most of his career. He hasn't had to play defense before in his life. Now he's asked to be making shots and creating shots against much better athletes, and it's going to take a little bit of time. And I think that there just needs to still be a little bit of patience because he's learning on the go. I don't know if you saw that they had like a Spartan Access where he was talking about what he was been doing during the course of the season. He's watching an hour and a half film like a day. Like this guy lives, breathes, eats basketball. He's going to figure it out. His mid-range game is still very solid. He's shooting above 40% from that, most of which he's creating on his own. The three-point shot's not falling. If he was shooting 35% from three, we would have no complaints about it. He's just not hitting some of those shots. They're going to fall. I believe it. He's struggling a little bit to get all the way to the rim and finish. But I think overall, if you're looking at what he's capable of becoming for this roster, that's maybe the most exciting part of the whole thing. I thought coming into this season, if Michigan State didn't get the A-plus version of Christie, they were going to really struggle on offense.
Yep,
that
definitely
hasn't been the case. He's really been like a C-plus version of what I think he can eventually be. And Michigan State's still winning. So what does it look like when Max Christie takes another month or two? He gets assimilated to the physicalness of the conference. He gets assimilated to being able to really hunt his own shot in the right spots, because I think the shot selection has been a little bit of a question mark. But all around, I think that there's nothing but optimism that should be looked at for the roster, particularly when you're looking at what he can eventually become for this team.
The thing that's most exciting about Christie for me is when I was kind of thinking about what is Max Christie as a freshman, what can he do coming into the season, I had huge concern because of how you said who he played against his senior year. I had huge concern for how he would be on defense. That is not the case.
Yeah.
This dude has played much better defense than I thought he would. And if now our biggest complaint about Max Christie is a shot, which people that have watched Christie play, that watched him in practice, they said this is one of the best shots, one of the best strokes they've seen in years. So if that's your only flaw of Max Christie's game, and it's not the defense, then once Christie's shot begins to fall, he might even exceed expectations of what most of us thought coming into the season. Of course, he needs to hit the shots for that to happen. But his defensive floor being much higher than I thought it would has given me more promise of who is Max Christie as a freshman than originally earlier in the season. Just need the shots to start falling.
So I'm just going to put this as a caveat. We've heard over and over again, you see it on Twitter, whatever, Tom Izzo doesn't let the freshmen play. He doesn't, it's always a stigma that somehow when he gets these guys that he just like holds them back, which is an absurd thing to say. This is the other side of this. Max Christie from day one has been asked to be what he is eventually going to be, maybe in February, March, or maybe even year 2, then versus what maybe he's capable and ready for game 1. They've asked him to take late second shots. The Loyola game, he had like a little turnaround. It was like game on the line. They gave him the ball when he was struggling in that game. And I thought that was such a good moment for the staff to say, like, this is what we need you to be in February and March. We're going to give this opportunity to you in November. We don't really care if we win or lose this game. We want to win it. But in the long run, we want to give you opportunities to be able to show that you're a guy capable of game on the line. This is your ball. This is your game. We believe in you. So I think that what they've done in terms of asking him to guard the number 1 wing defender, Gabe Brown is not taking on those responsibilities. It's been Max Christie. The first 2 games, like, whoa, he was getting roasted. Ochai Agbaji on Kansas absolutely destroyed him. But it's like, welcome to college basketball, buddy. Here it is. And I think that what we've seen over the course of these games is him continually get better on that end. And they're asking him to do a lot on the ball. They're asking him to create. They're asking him to rebound. They're asking him to defend. So he's been more than enough for what this team needs to this point. If they're going to reach their ceiling offensively, he needs to be a little bit better. He's leading the team in minutes. You think if it was going poorly, they would continue to play him?
He doesn't play freshman, though.
Yeah. Jordan Crawford. But listen, remember Rocket Watts' freshman year? I know it took a while for him to become a prominent player, but Rocket Watts had a long leash, even as a freshman.
Yeah.
And that was with Cassius Winston playing next to him. So there was every reason for him to not have the usage he had. But no, Izzo had Rocket Watts over there doing his thing.
The eyeball test on Christie's fine. I mean, you use the term like, the flaw in his game right now is a shot. I wouldn't even argue it's a flaw in the game.
It's just not.
It's the prettiest shot I've seen since Bryn Forbes.
Yeah.
It was borderline flawless. When he lets it go, I think it's in every time. It just hasn't fallen yet.
It's a beautiful looking shot. Yeah. I'm not worried about him big picture at all.
Not at
the
all.
eyeball test checks out. This is look.
I think that we should look at the silver line in this.
Yeah.
He struggled in the early part of the season. I think that we end up getting him 2 years because physically he needs to take another step. To be able to score at the rim is honestly what I think is missing from it. He's had to rely on the jump shot so much. I can't remember the numbers, but I think he's like 3 for 17 or 4 for 17 at the rim right now. He's really struggled to score because he gets there and he's not physical enough to be able to finish through the contact yet. Once they just get another offseason for him, which I think that he will, he's always been a guy that's been very mature. He could go to the NBA and get drafted in the first round, there's no doubt. But I think the process for him and him wanting to continue to get developed at this level was there from the moment that he decided to step in. And that mindset is so huge to be able to come to this. So if you're looking at like, it's unfortunate that he hasn't quite been 100%, and maybe he eventually gets there and we don't see him another year because March happens and we make a run and he's, the catalyst to the whole thing. But I think if you're looking at here and now, he's probably a guy that should come back and get developed. And if they do, then there's nothing but upside for Michigan State fans in that.
And to that point, so I did a podcast with Christie way back when he committed, and there were 2 things about his mindset that stuck out. One, like you were saying earlier about how he lives and breathes basketball. I tried really hard to get an answer out of him for what he does for fun, what his hobbies are. Yeah. He said, I quite literally just do 2 things. I watch anime and I play basketball. That's all I do in 24 hours if I'm not in school. Second, he said, I'm in no rush to be a one and done. I will do whatever is best for the long-term outlook of my career, even if that's being here for 2 or 3 years. This is a guy that gets what needs to happen before you can go and have a successful career in the NBA. And getting there as soon as possible is not what he's looking to do. Yeah. So, like you said...
And he chose the right program. This isn't Kentucky or Duke where you're just spitting them out and saying, well, I hope you succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Xavier Tillman's going to be able to do. He's going to have... As long as he stays healthy, Xavier Tillman's going to have a 10 or 15-year career in the NBA. I mean, you see the dunk the other night? Did you see that? My God.
He's what we thought Draymond would be. Draymond exceeded that. I don't think Tillman's going to reach that level, but yeah, he can be the seventh guy forever, for 8-10 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think that the program does a really nice job of saying, if you stick with us, we're going to teach you everything you need to have a long and lasting career in the NBA. And I think that Christie, from the day that he came into the program, understood that. And so whether he leaves in a year or 2 or 3, he's going to be in a position where it just makes sense. It makes sense for him. It makes sense for his development and all the rest of it. So.
And just last quick thing on Christie, what you were saying about one more offseason, physicality-wise, that'll like solve any sort of issues we have. That's not a pipe dream. In the last 7 or 8 months, he's put on like 20 pounds of muscle. Yeah. So this is a dude that actually goes out there and puts on weight and is going crazy in the weight room. So this is not a pipe dream, what DK was saying of, just one more offseason, like sometimes people say. No, this is a dude that in the one offseason he did have already put on like 20 pounds. So one more offseason, I think it's definitely valid to say once you get that, scoring at the rim, better as a defender, adds another layer to his game. So that's 100%.
He's got the personality and the soul of like a 65-year-old guy. Like he's like an old, that's a compliment. He's just an old soul. I mean, it's sort of a cliche. This guy is the least arrogant, most measured guy I think I've ever seen come to the program that had any type of juice coming in.
Kind of reminds me of Kenneth Walker in that regard.
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker is the same way. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Have you met Kenneth Walker?
No, but I've talked to him on the phone before, and
so you've had interactions with him.
Yeah, just one tidbit here. I talked to Kenneth Walker, and I was saying I think you'll start right away. We didn't have good running back production last year.
Yeah.
Dude goes, I'm just gonna come in, work as hard as I can, and hopefully earn some carries. Some carries.
That worked out pretty well.
Have you heard the story of when he came here to do the show?
No.
He walks down the basement, right? So the same stairs you've walked a few times now at this point. And he just goes, whoa. Now, Connor Hayward had already been here because he was here for the Jalen Watch Jackson event. So he kind of already knew. It was old hat to him. But Walker hadn't seen all this shit all over the walls. For those that haven't been here, it's the Michigan State Museum. So Walker has played one game at this point for Michigan State. He's been on campus for 9 months. Doesn't know that much about it. And, I said, like, hey, studio's this way. We can get to it. We'll probably go live in about 10 minutes. Walker goes, excuse me, I tapped in there. Excuse me, sir. Sorry, if this isn't okay, it's okay. Let me know. But can I take 10 minutes to just look around? And it's like, yeah, like, go ahead. So he's walking around looking at the jerseys and stuff. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? And I was impressed, speaking of this whole thing. Connor Hayward, like, knew who Tony Mandrich was, like, knew all. Now, his dad was in the NFL at that time. But, like, Hayward knew who everybody was. I was actually impressed with him. He had like an encyclopedic knowledge of guys that were playing like in the 80s. I was impressed. But Walker spent 10 minutes walking around asking about who's this guy? Like what Tony Manders, Hayward's telling him, he went second overall, drafted ahead of Barry Sanders. And what happened there? Like he was the most humble kid.
Yeah.
And he was asking both of us, like, what's it like? We were just in Evanston. What's it like when Michigan State wins a big game? Like, what's it going to be like if we beat Michigan in October? Is it going to be like, what's campus like? Just the most like wide-eyed, nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
Most unassuming. And keep in mind, he had just run for like 1,000 yards against Northwestern. Yeah. So this was not preseason. He had already had this.
Right.
He was already viral on Twitter. He was already trending.
That is a microcosm of the kind of guys Mel Tucker got through the portal. A lot of people have misconceptions of, you get guys from the portal. It's because either one of two things. They weren't getting playing time, or two, they just weren't the kind of guys that buy into programs. No, like he got guys like Anthony Russo. I don't think he's played more than a couple snaps. That dude was a pure Spartan before
Russo
the
was the same way, and you met Russo.
Exactly.
Yeah. He was the same way, asking me about the history of the program.
Yeah, Jarrett Horst. A lot of these guys, like, they're genuine good people, humble people that they just wanted to learn everything about being Michigan State Spartans. And that's not the preconceived notions people have of portal guys. So just wanted to add that tidbit in there. Is the kind of guys that Mel Tucker is getting from the portal, they're carefully vetted.
Oh, even recruiting, portal, whatever. It's guys that love football. Tucker said that at his introductory press conference. Like, if you like football, I'm probably going to like you. That's his That's his number one, like, gateway question. Like, how much do you love the sport? Yeah, Walker's the best, man. I'm sad that he's a former player at this point. But so last thing before we get to the speed round, Cliff Notes version, because this is off topic, kind of. What the fuck's going on with Imani Bates in Memphis, man? He stinks.
I'm gonna get in trouble here.
I'm not saying he'll never ever be good.
Yeah.
Right now, that kid stinks. He can't guard Justin at this point.
Yeah, I mean the defense was never going to be his thing. I think
but
the reclassification coming up into this, he should technically be a junior this year, and he's playing in college basketball. So I think there's part of that. So I will, maybe stymie some of the hate there, even though I have been hate watching Memphis and Arizona State for Boache as well.
So you and me both.
It's partially there, but I think if you're looking at what it would have looked like had he come to Michigan State, I think that the way that this group is united and the way that this group looks would have looked completely different if you had the circus in town for what it would have been there. So I think to a certain degree, as I had stated even before this all came down, I think it all worked out for the way that's best for Michigan State in that regard, and that's just kind of how I'll leave that.
Amani Bates is one guy that really could have used Tom Izzo's coaching. He's a guy that instead of playing for Will Wade, but with a Sports Illustrated cover 15 years ago, he could have played for a guy that would have taught him defense, would have taught him what it's like to really lock in and work, and hey, he had his chance.
Amani played 15 minutes in that loss, in the win over Alabama.
That's why they won.
It's true.
It's partially true because they're relying on the defensive principles on that team, and he's not part of that equation.
I'm pretty sure he was minus when he was out there in a game that they blew him out. Basically, I mean, he was holding him back. I just don't know. I mean, the point about the age is well taken, but that caveat wasn't coming in with him. He was supposed to be really good right now. That's what I was told. I don't write these fucking articles for SI. Don't blame me. I'm just reading this shit. I was told he'd be good now. And don't tell me he's an ex-LeBron and the guy can't play. There's 8 guys that played more minutes than him.
Yeah, but we saw that this summer coming from him. We knew that wasn't going to be. I think that the expectations changed during the course of the summer when he was getting evaluated by NBA prospect, draft guys and saying like he's got a long way to go.
Dudes for The Athletic were writing articles before he even chose Memphis over Michigan State that he was underwhelming compared to what they had seen 2 summers ago.
I wouldn't trade him for Jaden Akins right now, even if I knew both.
We didn't even give any real love to Jaden Akins. I love Jaden Akins. He's been fantastic.
That's your guy.
That's my guy.
The best thing to happen to Michigan State for this short-term upcoming season was Jaden Akins not passing Amani Bates that ball.
Yeah, thank God he didn't.
DK was saying,
he scored the bucket anyway. What are you bitching about a kid scoring the bucket? He missed you, hit his head down. He has dribbling. He's trying to beat a guy. Missed you on the oop.
Amani's not a fan of somebody making the right play.
What does Elgin Bates think of his son playing 15 minutes in that win? There's no way he's
I don't know. Did he post on Instagram about it?
There's no way he's okay with
Memphis because he thought that Penny was going to be able to take him to where he needed to go. So it is what it is. So we'll see what happens with that.
To the NIT in 15 minutes a game? Is that where he was hoping to go? It's not working out. And look, we used to couch this by saying, and I think we talked about this. I know I talked about it with you, Justin. Yeah, Akins versus Bates, if it came down to one or the other, I'll take 3 or 4 years of Akins over 1 year versus Bates. Right now, I'll take 1 year of Akins over 1 year of Bates.
I'll take one possession of Akins over like a year.
Well, now calm down. That's a little hyperbolic. But it's incredible how that gap has been closed. And look, Amani Bates may explode and meet Kevin Garnett in 2 years, and someone who hates me, and that's a long list, is going to pull this up and I'll look ridiculous. Yeah. But right now, the kid can't play. He can't defend anybody. His offensive game is shaky. It's flawed. His shot is hot and cold. He's weak going to the basket. If you're playing that level of defense, you better be filling the cup on the regular. He can't guard a chair. Sorry, I don't like Amani Bates. If anyone wants an Amani Bates signed basketball, there's one in my closet on the ground right now. So we'll move on. It's speed round time, guys. You've been very generous with your time. I know, Justin, you're in high demand in particular.
Signing day's over. Signing day's over.
Yeah. This is like after the NFL draft. Justin Rogers is like floating on an inflatable tube with a cigar and a Mai Tai in his hand. Like those, he's always celebrating the day after the NFL draft. So let's get to the speed round. We'll do it. Let's fire it up, Ben. I'm ready. So we'll go in alphabetical order here the whole way, which means that's UDK ahead of JT over there. So we'll start here. I sent this to you in advance, which I hate cheating on the speed run, but this Jackson Mahomes thing. Did you catch what's going on with Jackson Mahomes? This is off topic, but it's a speed run. I can go wherever I want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Patrick Mahomes' younger brother.
It's a tool bag.
Well, he's always been a tool.
Yeah.
But today was in the news. Apparently, and his post was deleted within minutes, and like I haven't even been able to find it, which is incredible. In 2021, everyone screenshots everything in 2 seconds. I've had some bad tweets that I deleted within 4 seconds.
Look at that photo of him on the phone. He's just like...
Well, this is, I mean, for what we threw
him
up there,
and his girlfriend, he just surrounded himself by the worst people.
He's at this
At least one of them he chose. This one he couldn't.
Right. He's alleged, this is Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs' younger brother, who's he's put himself in the spotlight in a bad way several times, dancing on Sean Taylor's number on the field right after they were celebrating him. And it's been a mess. But today he's in the news, again, allegedly, but it sure seems true. He's at this bar in Kansas City with a big group of, I mean, when you're clinging on to the sibling, I can only imagine the people that were rolling in that group, because there's no way this guy has friends. These are clingers on. Like, if you know this guy.
How old is he?
He's young. I think he's like 20. He's an adult. He's not a minor. If he were like 15 years old, I wouldn't be fucking killing him. He's
helping
like,
the mic out. Just drop down there.
Oh, yeah. No problem. So I think he's definitely an adult. He's 19, 20, 21, something like that. But he's already coming into the situation poorly, with poor optics and a poor reputation. He's at this bar in Kansas City with the world's worst entourage. It's like the entourage of the sibling. I can only imagine the dregs of society rolling in this circle. And it's a tiny bar. It's like the Peanut Barrel. And he's demanding a table for 10, 12, 14 people. Again, allegedly. I don't want Patrick Mahomes' attorney to,
allegedly.
Giving me a call. Yeah, I got to work in allegedly more. But, he's demanding, like, this accommodation. And the restaurant's like, look, we're a fucking mom and pop tiny ass bar. We don't have room for your 14 miscreants to sit down. And he went to social media and was like, and apparently like not threatened, but told the manager who's denying him this accommodation, hey, like I have X amount of followers. I'm gonna bury you. And then he tried to like bury this little bar. And that was we cut up parts of that statement. I don't even want to like read through all of it. I mean, the video viewers can take it in, but they just crushed him. What's your take, DK, on just Jackson Mahomes, clickers on siblings? Are you a Jackson Mahomes guy?
Yeah. Do I look like one? I mean, that's an absolutely absurd.
I'm called an asshole. I'm called an asshole for the Kelly Stafford stuff. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about children here. These are adults, especially Kelly Stafford. I'm going to make fun of you if you're stupid. I don't care that you happen to be related. I'm not picking on the guy's son, right? He's a loser.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any reason for us to like Jackson Mahomes. But the only real takeaway I have here is I really like the statement the bar put out. You don't really see companies.
It's so great.
That was sort of the second component of what I was going to say.
They came out hard.
You got to push back on this shit, because this influencer thing, where like, and it's been a thing a couple of times in different ways, where and companies are starting to call this shit out. I can't remember who it was, but this influencer, not a famous person, an influencer, was writing this company. It was a hotel, I think. Hey, if you give me a free 2-week stay or whatever and free room service every morning, I'll write a good review on my blog. And this hotel came out publicly and was just like did a public response to her, just like, you can pay like everybody else. We don't need your 47,000 followers. Like, I hate the whole social media thing. Sucks. Kelly Stafford's throwing pretzels at people. She's apologizing every third week in the news for something. Jackson Mahomes has to come out and apologize multiple times. It's not just Jackson Mahomes. The whole social media, influencer thing, not my cup of tea. That's kind of where I was going, but you like it.
We all live off it, though. What are you saying?
Live off it?
We all live off the social media? I mean, we all do. The whole
No. I'm not
part of it.
No, I'm talking about a component. Influencer. I'm talking about a component of social media, not social media generally. The Jackson Mahomes of the world.
I would love to have a day job of just traveling to Fiji and posting pictures. So. Yeah. I'm envious of it.
Instagram, just the Instagram couples that are out there.
Okay, you like
with a million followers.
No.
Yeah. Just great bodies and warm beaches. I mean,
since I am not able to be an influencer, Now I will
You're
say
an
yes.
MSU football influencer. What are you saying? You have the highest honor basically in the Michigan State.
Yeah, that's true.
Biggest perk I've gotten is free parking at the Kellogg.
That's solid.
All right.
Get this
That
guy.
is nothing.
I considered you a friend, but if you're going to stay in here for
This guy a
Jackson
couple ice cream
Mahomes,
cookies, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, melting moments for you, man, and in honor of Colton Pouncey. All right, we'll move on. I thought that would be more interesting than it was.
It was definitely not.
But
Good
yeah.
try though.
So that was a thud on the ground. So let's get back to more traditional sports. College football playoff. This is very straight. This one can't be a total thud. Who wins is the question. What do you think happens? Give me who's in the finals. Who wins?
Shoot,
Alabama, Georgia are in the final, and Alabama wins. Obviously, that's chalk, and chalk doesn't happen most of the time, but in the college football playoff, it kind of does. And what you've seen in the last few years is everyone likes expansion in theory, and then you get to the playoff, and suddenly you're like, okay, these two semifinals were kind of blowouts, and really there were just two better teams than the rest. But I do like expansion, so don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-expansion. But
how much of the expansion do you want?
I want
6, 8?
I want 8, I want 3 at large, and I want 5 auto bids. But the 5th auto bid should be shouldn't be all 5 Power 5 conferences. It should be the 4 Power 5 conferences, and then the lowest ranked Power 5 champion would need to be higher than the highest ranked Group of 5 champion. So what I mean is,
you want to give a shot to the little guy.
Yeah, as long as they are better than the worst Power 5 champion, I want them to take the final auto bid.
I got you.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I am anti-expansion. I'm in the
That's fair.
minority.
That's fair.
For the reason.
Can we all agree that as long as Michigan loses, we're happy?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't care who wins the 3. I mean, Cincinnati would be by far the funniest, but this is not going to happen. Yeah.
But what's the score of that? Are they just going to destroy them? Because I haven't watched any.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as people say.
So I really, really like Cincinnati's defensive backfield. Not just because one of the dudes' names is Sauce Gardner and the other is Kobe Bryant.
Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant?
Sauce Gardner and Kobe.
Cincinnati by 10.
So those are the two dudes.
This is why we brought him in, to be able to give us his hard-hitting facts.
I didn't know Sauce.
So Kobe Bryant was the Jim Thorpe winner, I believe, which is the best defensive back in college football. Sauce Gardner was AP All-America first team. So these are really good cornerbacks, not just decent. And now you have Desmond Ridder, who's a really good quarterback, probably a day 2, maybe day 3 NFL draft pick. And you have a lot of guys that play hard, and it's a good culture. I don't think to beat Alabama. I also don't even think that they cover. But this is not going to be some 45-3, and everyone's talking about how dare Cincinnati be let in, no G5s ever again. Because let's be honest, there have been Notre Dame's and even Michigan State that has gone there and hasn't played very well. So this should not be an indictment on Cincinnati, because better conferences have sent representatives and gotten blown out. So if they get blown out, I don't think it's an indictment. But I don't think they will get blown out. I do think they don't.
Where does he go next? Where's Luke Fickell's next job?
Luke Fickell messed up. Luke Fickell should have taken that Michigan State job when he had the chance. Now his only hope is that Ryan Day leaves Ohio State for the NFL, and I don't think that is happening. Luke Fickell's going to be hitched to that he's going to be hitched to the wagon of carrying Cincinnati into the Big 12. Let's see how they do there. I do think the Big 12 is a fraud conference once those two teams leave. So he should be fine. He'll be able to win. But his only 2 jobs he was willing to take was Notre Dame, Ohio State. And Notre Dame chose his protege over him after only 1 year as a P5 defensive coordinator. Ohio State job, that's a young dude there, has kids in elementary school, might not want to leave just yet. And
we'll see if he has another season and loses to Michigan, he might be forced out sooner or later.
I thought he was going to Notre Dame. I was surprised.
I did too. So basically, either his wife is going to have to be okay with leaving the Midwest, and the next time a USC kind of job opens up, she'll have to be okay with that being a move for the family.
Well, she needs to play ball because she's the reason he's not in East Lansing right now.
That is correct. So
I mean that's not my reporting, but it's people that know.
Yeah,
I mean the people
we talked to the people that would know, and it
was his wife.
Might have worked out for everybody.
Yep. There's no doubt about that.
For the record, we didn't dodge a bullet. Either door was great.
That's true.
Fickell's very good.
That's true.
I didn't think that we were going to be able to go back and open door number 2 was my thing. Right?
That was the issue.
I didn't think that they would be able to walk back through door number 2.
For sure.
So once it's shut, and then they blew the other. I was just like, what is going on? You know?
I got a call.
Panicking. I mean, at least I was.
It was an extreme panic.
Yeah.
No,
MSU Twitter was in like the
I did a video called East Lansing is burning. It's still it's still up. Like
I got a call on my way to East Lansing. I was driving from Macomb to East Lansing that day. Somebody said Luke Fickell's out. And I just hung up. I looked at the tweet.
You pulled over, didn't you?
I took the first exit. I was 20 minutes away from East Lansing. I watched the video of him saying he was staying, and I looked at the horizon, just parked there for like 10 minutes. I'm like, our football program is finished. I went to a school that's no longer going to have a football program. We're going to hire Brett Bielema or Chris Creighton or keep Mike Tressel.
I was trying to talk myself into Jim McElwain. I'm on Jim McElwain. Search Darko State News McElwain. I look at 9 tweet thread like, hey, it might work out.
Yeah,
go up to Mount Pleasant.
Shout out Florida guy that was like always I'm not the guy that was in the shark picture.
I still think McElwain's a good coach. He was the wide receiver coach for Harbaugh for 1 year.
Did you ever see that when he was like shirtless and like killed like a great white or something?
It was not.
I know, but that's what the whole thing. That's what I think of when I think of him.
No, but shout out to those guys. Shout out to Brian Masalam. Those guys, they were able to circle back.
Brian basically brought that one home.
Yeah, shout out Brian.
Brian brings everything home. Ben, how's our stream looking there? I'm looking choppy.
It's still up.
Okay, so they're still hearing me sound beautiful. As long as they can still hear everything DK's saying, we're good. Yeah, the Fickle thing was fun. So we'll go to the next one. I teased it a little bit before. I cheated with you guys before the show. I'm not supposed to tease the speed round. Odell Bretton Jr., I think, is the single greatest member.
He's gonna be appreciative of this.
He is the greatest.
He's watching, you know it.
He's the best. He's my favorite Michigan State fan. I was trying to make a T-shirt in time for October 30th this year, and I couldn't turn it around. I had the idea on like the 27th. I didn't have the idea in time. But you could make 1,000 T-shirts off this guy's tweets, and we pulled this one. You could have pulled 1 million. With the eyes of the world on him, Coach Mel Tucker just delivered the single greatest press conference in the history of college football. Truly a moment in time that will never be forgotten. On July 23rd.
Yeah, what was July 23rd?
What was going on? It's not in season. It's not the spring game. What could have possibly it wasn't Big Ten Media Day in July, was it? Maybe.
He says it right in the title. MSU Chief of Propaganda. He's right there.
Pretty neutral, dude.
Pretty neutral.
He had one with Kenton.
He's
Kenton
one
Hauser.
of us, though. That's the best part. And he doesn't have to pretend to be anything that he isn't. Right? He just gets to be
the best.
His best self.
But Michigan fans that interact with him forget like what his objective is, and they get mad at him. Like, dude, actual journalists will tweet back and forth at this dude and be like, "You don't get it."
The guy
Nick Baumgartner and him were getting into it earlier today before we got.
Why would you fight with Odell Bretton? He's undefeated. You can't beat somebody saying things like that.
No.
He's like our 3-year Letterman.
He's the propaganda. What are you trying to rail against that?
He's the best.
You know he got a Mel Tucker follow recently?
Yes.
Did he?
Yep.
Yes.
You're on that list.
That's the best
Aren't you
feather
on
in
that
the
list?
cap.
I am on the.
Yeah,
you know the story behind that is pretty interesting.
For you or for him?
No. For when I got the Mel Tucker follow.
Yeah.
So it was my first interaction with Coach Tucker, and me and my colleague Corey Robinson, we were at the Ferris State camp. It was the first time I've seen Mel Tucker in person. We're just talking to Tucker, and Corey goes like, "Yeah, I think you're familiar with my work, Coach. You follow me on Twitter." And I just randomly go, "Yeah, I haven't made it to that level yet." Fast forward like 45 minutes, Corey and I are just standing in line buying cookies. Coach Tuck comes up, he goes, "Hey, what's your Twitter, my man? We got to fix this mistake." And then that's kind of how that started. But
he's the man.
Tucker's so much funnier like when the cameras are not on and like he doesn't have to be like as professional.
Yeah,
that's a funny dude right there.
He's very buttoned up. Odell had a funny tweet today. The Peach Bowl official account tweeted out like, "Hey, if you're coming to the Peach Bowl, like half off tickets at the aquarium or whatever." It's like a picture of a shark in an aquarium, and Odell's response is like, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some Michigan State fans in the aquarium getting ready in meditation, ready for the game or something." It's just like everything is like so absurd. He's the funniest account, like maybe that I follow, but certainly the Michigan State. He's my favorite. So
I put him on the Mount Rushmore. You did it right.
Yeah, he has to be. And he's like whatever number. He's my number one. He's my favorite. So I just had to work him in. I figured you guys were fans, but we've never talked about that.
Big fan.
I'd like to meet him in person. Have you?
Here.
Yeah, he was at
Did
the,
you?
he came to the Jalen event that you boycotted.
Oh, I didn't boycott.
Yeah.
He didn't even want to be in the same state, right?
Suddenly he had plans, right? You and Sheehan. We're in this group chat. I'm not in the one that you're in. Apparently I'm not cool enough for that one. But we're in this group chat. And him and Sheehan are like, oh, it sounds great, man. We're in. I'm throwing dates. Yeah, we're in.
I said maybe the whole time way through.
No,
I'm a soft commit until I can confirm hard, and I couldn't.
You're always soft commit on everything.
Everyone's a soft commit according to Graham Couch.
Yeah, right.
Right here, I had to wrangle you for this event. 100%.
For this?
Yes.
What we're doing right now?
What we're doing right now. I said, when are we going to do it again? I said, when are we going to do it? I had
This
to
was
ask
not you. This was Cornholio on Twitter. Cornholio9 was like, hey, when you having those guys back? I'm like, oh, how about at the same time?
Good point. It's been a while since I've gotten a chance to be back.
That was bad.
Like once a year.
I get a lot of messages from people.
Your bar is great. There's no doubt about that.
That's why you're here. I got a message a couple weeks ago. Look, this is going to make me sound like an asshole. I'm going to get in trouble. But this guy is a nice guy. I'm not going to name him. But he said, hey, I'm a fan of your show. I want to come in and do an hour on what I'm doing with some technology he's developing for blind athletes. He wanted an hour.
That's kind of cool.
It sounds interesting, but I wouldn't know
what would you do with it
for an hour. And I told him, I said, honestly, like if you want to do like a segment or something like a feature thing, that'd be cool. Like it's a cool thing. But he said like, no, I need like at least an hour.
Yeah.
And
that's like a 60 minutes. That's like a 60 minutes type of vibe. It's not
right. It's not really me. I'm too silly for that.
Yeah.
But it's like I just don't. But point being, I get some weird inquiries to do the show. But whatever. Anyway, but you guys are multi-timers. I don't hear this one.
Finally, today we've become multi-timers.
No, this is his third.
This is my third.
Must be nice.
Yeah, Chris Castellani has the record. Tony Paul is trailing by 1. Castellani's done it 4 times. So let's move on.
Wow.
So
I didn't know I was up in the rankings.
Oh, you're up. Wait, tied for second.
I'm sure my follower count will drop because of it.
Yeah, well, people are the amount of times DK's texting me. Sure, you want to see what you just said, bro? Like DK's texting me he's drunk at a wedding, like. Dude, what are you doing? Like, you've shown so much personal growth over the last year. Take it down. Delete it. I probably did.
I hope people stick through the end of the episode here just to get this.
I think it was a Keith Appling joke. I can't remember.
Oh, jeez. It was terrible. Yeah, that one was terrible.
You criticized me so many times. Look,
I'm just looking out for you. That's all I'm doing.
Oh, no, you're a good friend. I appreciate it. Let's move on. Michigan State basketball we talked about a lot. The sleeping giant. I have Sutan there.
Is that Sutan?
Now Sutan was a starter, but what he did in that 09 tournament, being the most valuable player of the regional, that was out of nowhere. And it doesn't have to be a starter that's going to play up. But is there somebody on Michigan State's basketball team that we didn't mention today that's barely playing now or isn't playing at all that you think, I don't know, come March we might hear from them? And the answer may be no. But is there somebody on that team that you think hasn't really been heard from yet, but will be heard from in a large way or at least a meaningful way before the season's done?
The answer to that's no, because I think the rotation actually has been like almost spot on.
So
if we looked at last year,
so not Steven Izzo,
and the way that the rotation worked out, it was borderline brutal. And I think this year they've played the guys that they need to for the most part. So I would say no to that because we've kind of seen glimpses. Because I think Malik Hall's the closest guy that could maybe be like a takeover game guy, and we've seen it like 2 or 3 times this season, so I'll say no. I will say that Goran Sutan's brother taught me tennis at Michigan State. I played that for a 1 credit class, and so I appreciate that little thing right there.
I love Sutan, so that was my guy.
His brother taught me tennis. I think I won the doubles. I think I won the doubles match when I played.
That's my Bosnian man. He got shit because I was there. We're the same age. We're probably there at the same time when he was there. I got shit on by my friend group for liking him for 4 years. Like 3 years anyway. They fucking hated me for even liking him, and I always defended him. So when he popped off against Kansas and Louisville in that regional,
shot like what 38 or 40% from deep.
He was draining threes. And by the way, pull up the UNC.
Could we get a couple more international players every once in a while?
I'm in for it. But he was good in the UNC game. He was the only one that played well in the final. Even in the final, he played well. I'm a big Suton guy, so that was a victory lap for me. I've had plenty that
I was only 10 when that happened, so I have
I forgot you were probably shitting your pants still in Pampers, but yeah, I'm old. But anyway, so no sleeping giant for you, Justin. You don't see anybody.
not unless Dwayne Stevens has eligibility left and plays the low post. There's nobody left.
I mean, I guess Jaden Akins is averaging 5 points a game. So if you want to see,
that doesn't mean a guy that hasn't played at all. It could be someone averaging 5 points a game that averages 15 in the regional.
I think Akins can do that.
Even Travis Walton was an answer for a game against USC.
But you know what happens when you bank 2 scholarships? You don't have as much depth.
Okay, can I say this? I will have a counterpoint, and I've argued this with Justin a couple times. Last year, the rotation was so deep, it was embarrassing, and he didn't know what to do with it. And he's playing Josh and Rocket, and Gabe Brown should have played way more than he did.
Yeah.
This year, he's playing 2 wings, almost 30 minutes. Akins is mixing in. Like, the rotation is tighter because they have only, X amount of guys on the scholarship. So I think in the long run, yes, I would like a guy like Daryl Morcell, who's done very well at Marquette and was available possibly to be on this roster. And maybe you have a little bit more scoring punch. And so if Christie falters like he has in the beginning part of this season, you have another option to go to. But I would say long term, if everybody stays healthy, I think that this was the all-around best case for this because he's tightened the rotation as a result, and we've seen the fruits of that. So,
see, the thing is you can get guys that are scholarship players in the portal and still have the same rotation you have now. Just don't get good ones. Just get ones that are decent. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Why is that? I'm curious for this.
So why not get, I don't know, the second best guy in Belmont last year and have him as like the 11th guy on your bench, and say Gabe Brown twists an ankle and he's out for 3 weeks and Malik Hall is going through a slump and you have foul trouble with Christie. Like, why not have a dude that played 27 minutes of Division I basketball last year that you can turn to, who won't be coming here with high expectations and won't be a locker room cancer and won't give you chemistry issues? Like, there are teams around the nation that have guys on scholarship that don't play, or they play 2 or 3 minutes a game. You don't have to have everyone you get in the portal be an impact player type of dude. Like, you saw Mel Tucker go ahead and get Kendall Brooks in the portal, who I don't know if he played a single snap this year. You have redshirt freshmen coming in that aren't playing. Like, my way of looking at it is the NCAA gives you 13 scholarships. Why would you say we don't want these 2? You can just get guys. I know why he didn't use them. He's worried about a culture problem. He's worried about having guys that'll come in and take issue with not playing. But you bring in guys that wouldn't expect to play, but would be happy to be at Michigan State. Just a little better than the 2 walk-ons you brought in that played in state. So just that sort of an expectation from their end.
I think Whitens would have played had he not gotten injured.
Just get somebody a little better than Whitens.
That's
I don't necessarily disagree with the philosophy because I think if you're looking at the way that Michigan State basketball has recruited, it could be better. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I actually like that Mel Tucker has come in and, processed some kids and shown that you can go out and grab a couple kids in the portal. And Izzo has always been very vocal that he doesn't like the portal, whatever. The reason why Michigan State's going to be good this year is because you went out and got a transfer portal point guard. So as much as you want to say it every press conference when nobody ever says anything about it and you're answering a question that nobody's asking, just accept the fact that this is the way that this is going to be. And I get that you're old school and you want to develop your own guys, all the rest of it. The reason why Michigan State's going to be decent this year is because you went out and grabbed a transfer portal point guard because you didn't have one on the roster last year. So he does need to be a little bit rein some of that back, just at least vocally. He's never going to do it. It's just the way that he is. But I would like to see him be a little bit more conscious of the fact that the landscape is changing. If you want to cut down the nets again in the next 3-4 years for however long he's there, he's got to just adapt to the new ways.
Yeah, you don't have to be Chris Beard. You do not have to change the way that you build a roster for Tom Izzo. Your concerns about culture issues, if you ruffle feathers and you make waves and get impact players through the portal, are valid. But not everyone you get through the portal has to be one of those dudes.
Yeah, and that's fine. It can be someone that you bring in that with as a veteran that doesn't have to play at all. It can be a Ben Carter who never in a million years would play in a big spot. Right.
Right. No, had never happened.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So with Michigan State basketball, man, you get Justin going. I love it, man. It's the best. I transition to this. Mitch Albom's Michigan State Paranoia. Now, I don't know if you guys read Mitch Albom's article. Even if you have, many of the audience may not have. So the crux of the article Mitch Albom came out with, right in the immediate aftermath of the Mel Tucker extension being announced, was essentially, this is bad. It's a bad thing because you are now in bed with Matt Ishbia, St. Andre, potentially Gilbert down the road, because theoretically, I talked about this on Masalam with my show a few weeks ago. Theoretically, in Albom's world, Ishbia is going to be on his couch in Paraguay or wherever he has his seventh house. And he's going to be watching the second quarter, and he's going to see some play action call he doesn't like, and he's going to call into the Michigan State locker room at halftime and tell Mel Tucker to run more misdirection or whatever. That's an asinine position, in my view. Albom has genuine concern that now you're in bed, you've taken their money, they're going to have some pull now and be exerting their will and influence and dictating effectively de facto running the football program and maybe the athletic department generally. I thought it was bullshit. I mean, was there any validity
the walk-on guy that preaches about how Izzo taught him everything that he knows and taught him hard work ethic and XYZ is going to be the guy pulling the strings for Michigan State football? Like, I get that now he's a billionaire and it just changes the whole perspective, but ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
I thought it was a ridiculous article.
You know why I was so confident Mel Tucker was going to stay before everyone else was kind of relaxed about the LSU rumors? Mel Tucker sees the infrastructure in place at Michigan State. He's been around the block. He knows exactly what successful infrastructures look like. LSU, Texas, they're not one of those. The reason Michigan State is different, and Alabama deserves credit for this as well. Maybe it's because it's Nick Saban and there's no other way it would work, and he's the presence that commands it. But successful programs with sustained success have donors that back the program and try not to run it. And Michigan State is the quintessential example of that. Matt Ishbia, Steve St. Andre, who funded this entire $95 million, these guys are not looking to script the first drive of a game. These guys are not telling Mel Tucker who to hire as his 10th assistant. These are guys that are saying, Mel, you let us know what you need. Here's your extension. Here's your facility check. Here's your staff pool. You put Michigan State on the map. You go ahead and build us something that we can root for and have success with. Mel Tucker has known that since the day he arrived, and that is not a situation Mel Tucker ever wanted to leave. That I knew before any contract talk was even out there, before I even knew any money was there. So any talk about these two guys running the program is just not true. And Mel Tucker wouldn't have signed this deal had that been true, because infrastructure was the number one thing he was prioritizing for his long-term home.
And he was going to get paid whether it was here or elsewhere anyway. So he's going to make a smart choice. He had options.
Yeah. I could go on like a 2-hour rant about how anyone complaining about the money aspect is just wrong. But sticking on topic.
There's plenty of ammunition there. But this is what you get when you have somebody like Mitch Albom who doesn't pay attention to anything, and he comes down from the mount.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know who that is. I've heard the name
Mitch Albom?
Oh, no. Wow.
I've heard the name 4 or 5 times.
Guy. Mitch Albom? Really? Okay, well.
He hasn't been great lately, though. What are you going to say about it? I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of people that haven't been great that I know, right? I don't know. You're from out of state already. Your roots, your family, your blood is Philly blood. So that
most of the sports coverage I used to read is out of state. Yeah, but in recent times, I don't think he's been someone that I've.
Well, okay. Just take my word for it. He used to be a big deal, and now he pops his head up once every 5-6 months.
Not a good article.
If that's what he's writing,
that was a loss for him. Yeah, that was bad. I mean, it's just out of touch. I mean, there's times that you can differ on something or have a different perspective. That's just someone who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Like, this is not like differing minds. Smart people can disagree.
Right.
Like you just don't know the dynamics.
Yeah. Like he knows. If you read Mel Tucker's statement, it's obvious who got this contract together. It was Brian Masalam, it was Jason Strayhorn. Call one of those two guys, ask for, hey, what's the dynamics at play? What kind of donors are Ishbia and St. Andre? Like, do some research.
Yeah.
Before writing.
I'm with you. Well,
Brian,
you're asking a lot. So we'll finish here. The last one. This will be very, very straightforward. Much cleaner, I think, than the Jackson Mahomes one, which was a mess. Izzo wins 3 national titles or Tucker wins 1. Now, to clarify, Izzo wins 2 more for a total of 3 because he's already got 1. If God himself comes down, if
this isn't a very good question. He should have said 2-1, and then you think maybe we would have had a debate.
It is 2-1.
He said Izzo wins 3.
2 more. Izzo already has 1.
More. I'm saying if they won 1-1, the
1
better
to 1,
question.
That's
the better
football,
question.
obviously, that's not interesting.
Better. What you said. The football 100%.
If I did a Twitter poll right now, would you rather have Izzo win his second or Tucker win his first?
Oh, it's gonna be say win it. No, it's the possibility of
would
it,
you
or
rather,
is it would you rather?
What's more likely?
No, it's a would you rather.
It's a bad question.
I didn't even get it out of my mouth, and you're jumping in.
No,
if God himself
it was not. It didn't say would you rather. It says Izzo wins 2.
Okay, don't just read the graphic.
Or
Listen
whatever.
To the host.
All right.
Because this is
Let's hear it.
Let's
hear it. Well, I guess we'll let him.
The tape will say that you interrupted.
Go on.
The tape will say you interrupted. God himself pulls you aside and says, "Look, you're David Klein. You've been a good boy this year. I'm going to give you your wish." We know what happened in 2000. From right now, Tom Izzo wins 2 more national titles, or Mel Tucker and the Michigan State football program gets 1. What do you take?
I would take 1 national title in addition for Tom Izzo. In the next 10 years, I would just sleep on a bed of.
That's the basketball
promises.
bias.
I don't know what. Maybe it's the basketball.
It would
bias,
cement the legacy.
It would put him in a position where he'd be infallible as one of the top 10 coaches of all time.
I still think he needs it. I think he needs it. And
I do think that he needs it, and he knows that he needs it. It's the Moby Dick, and it's the white whale that he's hunting, and so we'll see. The window is opened a little earlier than I thought, and I don't know if it's this year, but in the next 2 to 3 years, that window has opened a little bit, and he's got to figure it out.
That might be it. 3 years, 4 years. It seems
2
right.
maybe. I think you get Christie for 2, so I think it's 2 years.
Well, I mean, Izzo before he retires.
They got to get Bingham back if they want to make a run, though. But yes.
Yeah. So okay, you're going with the 1 more.
That was
for Izzo.
not even. It wasn't even close.
Oh, the 2.
You're gonna give me 2 national championships for Tom Izzo or 1 for Tucker.
You laugh. If I did that Twitter poll right now, it's gonna be around 50-50. Well, they haven't seen it in their lifetime. They haven't seen it, and a lot of them have seen Izzo. I mean, maybe not Justin. He's rubbing his face.
Here's the thing.
2-1.
Here's the thing.
People are crazy about football.
He's thinking
He's
about
a football guy. He's not even thinking about it. It's probably Mel for him. It's okay.
So Tom Izzo, he needs another one, like you guys are saying. He needs to. Jay Wright has 2 titles, and Jay Wright has like a first weekend exit, 7 of the last 11 years. So Izzo.
You can't be up there with Kevin Ollie.
Izzo's
tied with Kevin Ollie.
So Izzo needs a second, and not because I think that Izzo needs a second for him to be legitimized to me. I know who Izzo is. I know what Izzo is, but his 8 Final Fours for some reason are devalued because he doesn't have 2. So yes, needs.
I bet Michigan would have liked one of those last year.
And I don't mean needs at this table. I mean needs in terms of the perception of legacy.
But now you got to think about what would it do for Michigan State basketball if he wins another 2 versus
2. He even said it like the most ridiculous. Another 2.
Yeah, if you're giving me 2 more for Izzo, I'm probably taking that. But so if you look at what it'll do for that program and what another one will do for Tucker, for the football program, what would winning another title for MSU basketball mean if Izzo retires the year after it happens? You still need to hit on your next hire. You still need to have, this would be more for Izzo's legacy. However, if Tucker wins a national title, which Michigan State hasn't done in the lives of their current recruits and their parents, you will have you'll have an athletic department that has reached brand new heights. You will have a school that'll have applications coming in even more on a national scale than you have now. You'll have a football program that will be able to bring in more revenue for the basketball program when they'll need it with another head coach. I just think the Michigan State brand would benefit more from another football national title than another basketball national title.
It's not wrong, but I wouldn't trade it.
But
I would
I would take the football one. It's such a ridiculous question.
You said 2-1. 2-1 was a ridiculous question. If you said 1-1, it'd be a real debate.
2-1, and I'll take the one football.
You would take one football over two national.
Absolutely.
If Izzo somehow ripped off two national titles before he retired, You're insane.
I have seen it. I have seen it. I've seen it.
Wow. You've seen it 21 years ago. 21 years ago.
I don't want it. The concept of Michigan State basketball winning another national
Michigan State
title,
won.
It's been very out there.
If you won two in the next, say, 5 years before he retires, he will go down as a top 5 or 6 coach of all time.
Well, no, come on. I mean,
Dean Smith and Coach K and Wooden, he would be a top 5. He'd be a top 5 coach of all time to be able to do it.
Got to be top 4.
To be right in there, you'd have to think about it.
Wooden's one.
Wooden, K, Roy Williams, Izzo. I mean, you'd have to put Izzo above
3. That'd be 3 national titles, and
let's just win one. If he wins one, I'm gonna be so happy.
Yeah, here's the thing.
It's a person. You can't
one sentence.
You're asking the wrong guy, so I don't know what you're telling me.
One sentence summary.
I would trade one national title in the next 5 years for 1 in 10 seasons of football, 1 in 11 seasons for football for the next 10 years. My opinion on that would be completely biased. So you're asking the wrong guy.
If I put that on Twitter, I think I'd get 50-50.
Of course, it'd probably be more football.
45-55 somewhere in there.
If you put 2-1, which is a ridiculous thing, then
that's what I'm saying. 2-1. That was the question.
Yeah, I just think a Michigan State basketball program has reached heights that is sustained, that everybody knows it's at a certain point. So more national titles for Izzo would be more for him than for football titles for Michigan State and Mel Tucker, because that program hasn't had that success.
It would probably mean more for the universities. Not wrong about that, but I care more about the personal legacy of Izzo on the way out of his career than I do about what eventually happened. Because I think that, honestly, I think Mel Tucker can get there anyway. So I don't need
You don't need God to come in?
No, I don't need God to come in. I just want to.
My license plate is TM Izzo. It's not like an anti-Izzo thing.
No, I'm not saying it's
but you got so
2
defensive.
2-1. 2-1.
He's so
ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
I thought Justin Rogers was mean to me on my show. You guys are number 1. Anyway, Justin's been nice.
If Tom Izzo wins 2 national titles in the next 5 years and Mel Tucker wins 1, what would you rather take?
I'm going to be on my couch with my arms folded telling my therapist
Tom Izzo wins
how mean you were.
2 national titles in the next 5 years, then you can put a tattoo of whatever you want on any part of my body. How about that?
Where's my trainer to throw in the white towel? I'm getting beat up. You got to end the fight. So we're going to wrap it, man. We ran long. I appreciate you guys. I enjoyed the conversation, even when you guys were mean, and it will be tough for me to get over, but I'll get there. I'll get there somehow.
Another 9 months before I'm invited back.
Yeah, well, no, you were okay. It's this guy. I mean, I thought the baking guys were mean.
It's the botanist. It wasn't me.
The botanist turned you evil. So it was a great conversation. The Michigan State basketball stuff in particular was great. I know that you really like this team stealing. I still don't know what to think, and I know you don't want to tell me what you think.
I don't know what to tell you. Bring me in the heart of conference play. And I'll tell you. I'm not saying April 2nd. Yeah. I'm saying
we'll be in
bring me in February.
That's the point. That was the point of the comment. Yeah. I want to wait till the Elite Eight to see if this is a Final Four team. So, anyways, that's that. You guys are the best, man. You guys are the best in your space for sure. Unpleasantries from this one aside. Big fan of both yours. And I think for Michigan State basketball, can't beat what you do, DK, honestly.
Appreciate you.
I honestly don't think it's even close.
Gotta check out DK's work.
Yeah, I mean, you're the best. SpartanHoops.com. I got a hit from an email that my card was declined, not because of insufficient funds, but my card expired. So I got to renew my membership.
It was because you missed on that Memphis Alabama bet.
No, I've had to move some finances.
Canceled all the credit cards.
I've had to move some finances around. My wife has said $8,500 to DraftKings. What the fuck was that? Well, I thought Bama looked pretty good, honey. I'm making up the number.
He's out on Nate Oates.
Yeah. Ben, cut the feed. Get me the fuck out. So, we have some good stuff planned for next week. The date's not locked in. I'm not going to lock in the guest publicly yet. It's looking pretty good. Even Ben doesn't know. This will be an interesting
mystery.
One. It is the only hint I'll give has nothing to do with Michigan Athletics. I am pretending they don't exist. The basketball team I'm going to enjoy because I'm enjoying what they're doing. The football team, I'm going to pretend doesn't exist. Go Bulldogs. Hope it works out. Ben Augusta, man, great job by you as always. Eric Williamson and his boxers on his couch. Justin Thind and David Klein, DK. Like I said, best of what you guys do. Big fans of yours. We were, certainly friends maybe at this point, but I was a fan before I was a friend. And keep up the great work both you guys are doing, seriously.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you.
A lot of fun.
Really do.
It's a blast
Justin,
as always.
So good to meet you.
Yeah. You guys are going to be best friends.
Romance.
It's another group chat I won't be invited to, so look forward to that one. So thank you guys. Spiro Avenue Show, Justin Spiro. Stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming. Look forward to it. It's all to you guys, so you guys keep the lights on. We appreciate it. Thanks. Spiro Avenue, we'll see you next week.